Ladies and gentlemen, would like to go ahead and get our meeting started. Appreciate everyone being here tonight. This is the District 93 School Board meeting on May 10th, 2023. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance, if you would please follow me in that, and then an invocation will be offered by Terry Thompson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father in heaven, we are grateful for this opportunity to meet as a school district and the administrative bodies, and we pray, Father, for enlightenment on those items which need to be discussed and good decisions to be made for the students and faculties involved in this. We pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Terry. We appreciate that so much. We'll officially call this meeting to order and do a roll call. Paul Jenkins. Here. Carissa Coates.
Here.
Carissa is joining us via Zoom. We appreciate her joining us tonight. Randy Smith. Here. And I, Chad Dance, am here. I'd like to welcome again delegates and visitors. A reminder that if you would like to participate in the public input portion of our meeting, there is a sign-up sheet in the back. Due to their sensitive nature, complaints about personnel or an individual student must be submitted in accordance with Board Policy 4110, Public Complaints and Grievances. The complaint and grievance form 4110F1 are found on the district's home webpage, www.d93schools.org, under School Board tab, Board Policies. We now would like to open it up for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Randy Smith, seconded by Paul Jenkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The board was provided with the consent calendar prior to the meeting and all have had an opportunity to review the consent calendar. Are there any board members that would like to remove any item from the consent calendar to the regular agenda? There is one item, Dr. Wilson-Hume, that I would like to bring forward, and that is see if I can find it. The SRO School District 93 proposal. There's some items on the contract that appear to me to be errors. And so I'd just like to have an opportunity to correct those.
Okay. So do we want to move that off of the consent agenda then and look at those?
Yes.
Okay. Chairman Dance, may I ask a question of Ms. Williams?
Yes.
There's something on the consent agenda that we said we would pull if it weren't ready. Do you remember? Excavation. Is that on, that's a separate action item? Is there something else?
Talked about the Thunder Ridge chaperone issue.
Oh, and that one's resolved. Okay. Okay. I think we should be okay then.
Okay. All right. We'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of the SRO School District 93 proposal, that contract. and deal with that later on the agenda. I don't know where to put that, Sam.
That would probably be under,
We can put it under finance and operations.
Okay. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I would move to approve the consent calendar with item B, SRO, School District 93 proposal being removed.
Okay, we have a motion from Paul Jenkins,
Second?
second by Randy Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So, Sam, are we on D now?
yes,
Okay.
yes, and due to time constraints, yes, we go.
Okay, very good. Okay, first on the agenda, we have Thunder Ridge Spanish class, Mexico experience report from Kara Jackson, the Spanish teacher. Kara, come on up. We've heard from you before.
We're back.
Awesome.
Let's see. All right, first we just wanted to give you guys a little thank you. So we've got Spencer Anderson and Michelle Ivy with me, and you're going to hear from them in just a second, but
Thank you.
brought you each a little mini chichen-itzas. It's a lot bigger in person. Okay, so yeah, we just wanted to come and present after you guys unanimously approved our Spanish language immersion capstone experience there in Mexico. We were able to go. We left March 29th, and as there was just a lot of effort put into this and a lot of just trust put in to us by you guys, and we're super grateful. So I have a little slideshow, and Samantha's going to help me with that. This is like my favorite picture. Michelle's one of the stars, because to me that's kind of an expression of what was made possible by allowing us to do this. So we'll have you move on.
Kara, there's your.
Oh, it's for me? I get to do it. All right. Okay, thank you. So we did want to also just kind of look at some of these results with you. We took a pre and post assessment. We had the students take a pre and post assessment. Nothing like signing up to go on a vacation and being required to do 2 tests, one before and then one after. But they did it, and they did it willingly. And when you look at the 4 skills of communication when it comes to language, reading, writing, listening, and speaking are obviously the main necessities of communication. Pre-test is the light blue, and then the post-assessment is the dark, and you can see gains in all of those, which was pretty exciting. It was thrilling for me to be able to listen to their speaking pre and post, because the speaking, just the confidence in their abilities, and we were only there for 9 days, and so the confidence in their abilities went up dramatically. And just percentage-wise, we saw 3% growth in reading. We didn't do a whole lot of reading while we were on the trip, but that's okay. And then 14% growth writing and speaking, and 15% growth in their listening abilities. So pretty awesome statistics. This one makes me even more excited because I kind of geek out when it comes to this stuff. But we asked them prior to leaving, when communicating in Spanish, I feel confident in my ability to. And then there was a whole bunch of questions. The negative ones were the blue, red, orange, and green, meaning they disagree strongly, somewhat, or they're kind of indifferent. And you can see the top graphs there. There's quite a bit of blue and orange and red and some green. After returning home, you can see how those flip-flopped. One thing that I like to see is how the purple, the somewhat agree, almost inverted with the blue to agree as well. So even those who felt like they were kind of ready were able to go to, no, I feel good, in their abilities to communicate. So these questions were their ability to interact on a survival level and a functional level, their ability to negotiate and haggle, and their ability to ask for directions around a city. And so you can see the top being the pre-test or the pre-assessment, and the bottom being the post-assessment. Pretty fun to see the blues and the greens and the orange and the reds for me to disappear. They feel like they are confident. And that was one of the main takeaways. We asked them if they feel like they're part of a multilingual community at home, and if they feel like they're part of one around the world, and if they're likely to explore Spanish in their personal life outside of school. And those results changed quite a bit as well. One of our big questions that we debated here when we were talking back in November was just the overall security and safety about traveling to Mexico. On the right-hand side, it was a little bit of a different thought. The question was, I feel nervous about traveling to Mexico. Well, before they left, most of them said, yep, somewhat, I do. And then after we got back, you can see that most of them said, I strongly disagree, or I disagree, because it was a very, very good and successful trip where the students rarely felt like they were, or if at all, felt nervous about their surroundings. So, a few pictures to share with you. Hola. My voice. But we were able to travel first to Merida, and we had 22 students and 10 chaperones, and landed there at the airport, found our public transportation, which came as a result of our last meeting, just the recommendation through you, and we were so glad we did that instead of renting cars. Our first meal was amazing, and it started them all down the rabbit hole of a certain type of taco that they kept looking for. We had rooftop classes for immersion, and we were just in a really awesome environment there on a street called Paseo Montejo in Merida. And after that, our very first day, full day, was probably a highlight experience, and Spencer's going to just take a few seconds to talk to you guys about that. We got to spend some time at another high school in Merida called Piaget, and these were the warmest and most friendly students and teachers and staff, and they just welcomed us with warm arms. And I'm sure that several of them are still communicating with their Mexican high school friends that they made that day. So we'll turn some time over to Spencer just to tell you a little bit about that.
Hi, so as previously mentioned, I'm Spencer. I really enjoyed the Piaget school trip. I thought it was really awesome to be able to meet with peers in a different country and to be able to interact and see how we are similar and different and how school works there versus here. And I thought it was a really cool experience. They prepared for us very well. They had they're part of the planned activity. They actually set up booths for us to kind of experience some things about Mexican culture. So there was a booth with like traditional food and drink or snacks. There was a booth with like myths or like legends. There was one about games, one about culture of both Mexico and the Mayans, which are really like a huge deal in the Yucatan Peninsula. And so it was really awesome to meet these people, and also it was cool to make some friends. I was able to meet a lot of new people and kind of experience what it's like to be at school in a different country, and I thought it was awesome. So, thank you.
I'll go back to this picture here. If I can show you with the laser, this right here is Spencer on the top of a pyramid with all of his new Mexican counterparts and classmates, and they were doing the...
So we did the...
I forgot what it was called in English all of a sudden.
Like a food chain, or like...
The food chain, yeah.
Pyramid.
Yeah, so it was a science class, and they got to be in the classrooms. This is a history class up here. And this is Michelle and my daughter Emily in the classroom with this history teacher, correct? Yeah, very cool experience. We were able to spend some time on a couple of beaches. This is Progreso, Mexico, which is the very northern part of the Yucatan Peninsula. We had a food day where we studied food and different Yucatecan recipes, and they were challenged to take their recipes and find all their ingredients in a Walmart. This is very tricky and confusing to me, but on the left is a picture of the Walmart. Anyway, displays, and then we took them to a market, and it was the biggest market I've ever been to in my life. It could have taken us 3 weeks to get through it. And they had to find the same ingredients in both the Walmart and this market, and it was a really fun and cool experience for them, and they were successful. We spent some days doing some cultural tours, and this is a dad and daughter on the left who are laughing because the big bench that everybody's standing on is like it's a kissing bench, and it's supposed to keep you from kissing your partner because it's divided, and some dad created it to keep his daughter away from her love interest. And so we have Blake, one of our chaperone dads, over there asking if he can get one shipped to Idaho. So that was a pretty fun little exchange there. This was maybe one of our favorite nights. It was, the street was blocked off for us, and we were able to rent some bikes and explore just this beautiful, beautiful city and beautiful culture in Merida.
Hola chicas.
Hola.
¿Cómo están?
Muy cansada. Y muy bien.
Qué bien.
Okay, that was a fun night. That was our closing night before we left for the Playa del Carmen, and I'm going to have Michelle talk to you a little bit now.
Okay, so I'm Michelle, and one thing that I really liked about that night was it was our last night in Merida, and I believe it's every first Saturday of each month they do this thing where they close off one side of the road for bikers, and so we were able to rent bikes and kind of be a part of the culture for that night. And one thing that was pretty cool, I've been to Mexico before, and with this trip we got to dive into the culture. We're away from all the resorts and all of the touristy stuff, and we were really able to see the true Mexican culture. After the little bike ride thing, they opened up a lot of little street shops along the sides of the road that we were able to go through and look at, and it was a really cool experience. Thank you.
All right, thanks guys. After that, we got on a big bus and we headed towards Chichen Itza, and y'all have your little Chichen Itzas there. I got to take a little tortilla making class from a woman who only speaks Mayan, and that was very, very fun. So I don't speak Mayan, but she was very cute and got to make my first tortilla and make a fool of myself. We explored some cenotes and were introduced to our new location, which was more like an apartment style setting. So then we got to go to Playa del Carmen and be on another beautiful beach and see more of the culture. It was fun. The very first thing we did when we got off the bus was take the kids to a convenience store called OXXO. And the first OXXO, they were quite startled by. It was very different. And by the time we were into day 5, they were feeling very comfortable in going to the OXXO whenever they could, which this is them coming back from one of those little convenience stores that was on the corner. They had to take some public transportation in little kumbis is what they call them, and just like going to work with the people that live there. It was pretty fun. Anyway, you can see that it was just never-ending awesomeness for several days. The kids came back, and this was one of our closing experiences. We got to go to a performance that basically summarized it all, just threw it all together. The culture, the pride and the language and these people that they'd quickly fallen in love with over the previous 8 days. And then we got to visit an adventure park, which is called Explore, and do some zip lining and amphibious vehicles and have a closing dinner. So I just want y'all to know that they
Bye, Spencer. Bye. 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 Adios, adios, adios.
So sad.
I know. Bye-bye. Bye, Brienne. Guess I'm going back to the... Ciao. You survived. Proof of life for your parents. Proof of life. Proof of life for your...
Proof of life for the school board. So there it is. They're all back. They're all safe. It was an amazing experience, and we couldn't thank you guys enough for allowing us this opportunity. There's a buzz going on at Thunder Ridge. The kids want to keep going and want to dive into the Spanish program and continue to have experiences like this. This was perhaps one of the things that made me tear up the most, which was when one of our students, Leighton, showed me the drawing that he was working on, and he started this at the beginning of the trip and ended it and gave us each a copy. And this is just the heart of sacrifice that we learned a lot about from the Mayan culture, and then around it he drew the Mayan calendar. Just an example of how these kids are both quietly and sometimes not so quietly absorbing the good things that they were experiencing and learning on their trip. So thank you very much. I just am so grateful sorry. It was a lot of work, but it was so worth it, and I'm very grateful for the trust. And that's it.
Great. Thank you very much, Karen. Michelle and Spencer, thank you very much. And gosh, that was impressive. And mostly I'm impressed with the gains after you returned with the language and with the culture. That's remarkable. And that drawing is superb by Leighton. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys. I'm sorry we have to run.
Okay.
Senior night to go to.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much again. Any comments from the board on that?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you, I was apprehensive when the first presentation was made.
I know.
Going to Mexico, but
Yeah,
wow, what an experience.
that's what I was going to say. Is I just really appreciate the persistence of Austin and Kara. It wasn't an excited reaction from any of us when they first proposed it, but they really stuck with it, did things right, went to just a ton of work to make sure the kids would be safe there, and it's just great to see the results. And I don't know how they got those results, because I'll tell you, when I went to Japan, my confidence level was here in speaking, and in 2 weeks, my confidence level was here. So I don't know what they did different, but that was not my experience in the least.
Okay, we do have some recognitions tonight, and I'd like to turn the time over to Doug McLaren for recognition at Thunder Ridge High School, or is it Natalie? Doug, your start. Okay.
Chairman Dance, School Board, Dr. Wilson, we appreciate the opportunity, and just follow up on the slice trip. Kara probably literally spent hundreds of hours putting that together. She recognized your apprehension. She was a little more confident about the trip going in, but she recognized your apprehension, and as things built and she worked on the trip, all those the struggles or the nervousness, I think, hit her as well, and so she dotted every I and crossed every T and just did a fantastic job. It wouldn't have happened without her efforts, so great job to her. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and present a couple faculty members and a student. The first faculty member is Natalie Woods. She has been recognized as, I think, one of 4 in the state of Idaho, a presidential award for excellence in mathematics and science teaching, the old HAMST, or HANGST, depending on which part of the country you're from. So it's a national recognition that starts at the state level, and there's a lot of hard work that the teacher that's nominated has to do. They have to present a video, and then they have to do some essay write-ups and have letters of recommendation and do all of those things. And she did all of those things, but most importantly, Natalie is a fantastic teacher. I've worked with her for probably 9 years. I was going to say 8, but 9 years. And my daughter was fortunate to have her. And when I left today, she said, "Tell Mrs. Woods hi, and she can thank me later for writing the letter of recommendation for her for putting the book in." She's been out of school for 4 years. My daughter loves her. She still talks about her. She still talks about the experience. And the cool thing, I think, is my daughter thinks she is unique to Mrs. Woods, but she's not. There are so many kids that feel the same exact way about Mrs. Woods. They love her. They think they're the only kid that means anything to her. But she has kids coming to take her classes from all over the district. She's begun a Calculus BC program in the district before we had that, and she's been doing that for probably 8 years now. And she's now started a multivariable calculus. So kids that take her class, and as well as at some other schools now, they can take as much as Calculus 3, college level Calculus 3 while in high school. She's an awesome teacher. Kids learn. All our kids get 5s on the AP test. I can't say enough great things about her. She's a rock in the department, and we love her at Thunder Ridge. I'm very proud of her for this award. Fingers crossed that in 4 or 5 or 6 years, she might get the national award because it takes that long to get a process. So, but she's the Idaho recipient. We're very proud of her at Thunder Ridge. So maybe Natalie could come on up here.
Comments, Natalie?
Yeah, so to do this award, I had to do a video of my class. Your son was in it. And had to write up a bunch of different things, all these dimensions, like 15 different essays. Pretty big deal. But I felt like if I had taught in a different school district, and I've taught in multiple school districts, I would not have been able to write the answers that I was able to write, because they wanted to know what are ways that I've been able to show leadership and make changes. And this is one district where if I've noticed something that I felt like, oh, it'd be really great if we could do it this way, like, go for it. Anytime I bring something up to Doug, he's like, go for it, let's do it. We've introduced multiple courses, just doing that, the Alex course, the BC, the Honors Algebra 2 Prep, the multivariable, all these different courses that have really helped kids of all levels to improve. And so we've been able, and maybe they want to know what are the ways that you've been able to, like what are the statistics that show that these courses have made an impact? And like the Algebra 2 Prep course that we created, because there was such a high failure rate for Algebra 2. So we made that, and the first year at Thunder when we taught it, we had 101 kids take it, and 42% of those kids got A's in Algebra 2 the next year, and 100 out of 101 passed Algebra 2 with a C or higher that next year, which is dramatic. Right? But when we see things like that and we want to make changes and fix them, yeah, those look great, but some places you were not really, your hands are kind of tied. But here, I feel like we've been able to do whatever is best for students, and I feel like we've really been able to embody in our math department and across the district that we design success for students, right? That is what we do, and so like I've been empowered by being in this district to be able to do things like that.
Great, thank you, Natalie. We do have a certificate for you if you'd come and see. All right, the next one, Doug.
Our next one, and I hope I have the name of this one right, it's the Marquise Ross Up and Coming Athletic Director of the Year. This is a
recognition for Travis Hobson, our athletic director at Thunder Ridge. And his peers are the ones that make this recommendation, and that gets voted on by other athletic directors. But it's a statewide recognition, and very well deserved. Travis, this is his second year at Thunder Ridge. We got him up out of Century High School.
He's just a fantastic athletic director. Our coaches are very appreciative of the time and effort that he puts in on their behalf at the school level. I tell him sometimes he's got to shut his door because he's pretty gregarious and he likes to talk, and so he ends up being there till 6:30 some nights, getting his work done that he has to do, because his door's always open and coaches love to come in and just sit and visit with him and ask for advice and seek his counsel on a lot of different issues that come up. He's great with our coaches, and his peers have maybe told him to do a couple scheduling things that are pretty heavy lifts. He's scheduling a football schedule for our area as well as the golf schedule. So he does a great job for Thunder Ridge, but he also does a great job for our region and the other schools here. So Travis Hobson, well-recognized award here for up-and-coming AD of the year.
Okay, Travis, would you like to make some comments?
You asked for comments?
Comments, you bet.
I'm good. Your meetings are good enough. They're long enough.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, though.
We got a certificate.
It's all talk down today. You want points with that one?
Okay, one more, Doug.
And he's not happy that I made him come tonight, so it's probably the least favorite thing he has to do. The next one is super fun. I had the opportunity to go up to state speech. It's hard to go to speech and debate because they're in little classrooms and they're just it's not like in a gym where you kind of go and it's a environment where you can observe, watch and spectate and have fun. They're in a room and they perform for a judge at state speech. And this young man with humorous interpretation, I hope I got that title right, but he did a version of Shakespearean Three Little Pigs. And it's about a 10-minute presentation, or I'd have him do some of it, and it is fantastic. I was able to see it 2 or 3 times while at state speech because they perform this over and over again, probably 30 times through the course of the year. And every time they've got to do it a little bit better so that it doesn't get old. And his competition during the state championship, I guess you'd call it, was against, I think, 5 other students. All of them were awesome. And I thought there's no way a judge can decide on which of these 6 kids should be the state champion. But his, in my mind, was just a little above, and it was just fantastic. And it's so cool to see a student excel in something that they love and have passion about. Josh Brock is just a great example of why we as a district and we as schools offer a lot of different things for kids to compete and perform and do, because we have so many kids with so many talents that are unique to them. So I'd like to bring up first his coach / dad to talk a little bit about Josh and kind of how state speech works and how humorous interpretation works, and maybe Josh can come up with them while he talks about them.
Good evening. Our speech and debate program is an incredibly academic, rigorous competition format for young people. Our students spend hundreds of hours in competition alone, and that's per student, not cumulative over the whole team, over the course of the season. And then many more hours besides just researching, preparing, and practicing for these events. We competed in 8 different preliminary competitions, 2 district competitions, a national qualifier, and then 2 state competitions to get where we are here at the end of the season. And Joshua is a great example of what a student can achieve with hard work, dedication, creativity, and just a great attitude. Like we said before, he competed in a format called Humorous Interp. Humorous Interp is a speech competition format where competitors prepare a speech based on an already published speech. They then give their own version of that using a mix of acting skills and public speaking skills. And his, of course, being a humorous interp, the goal was to be as funny as possible. His speech consistently won in preliminary tournaments, much to the pride of his whole team. He kind of became very much the mascot of our varsity team members, who are just so blown away by how much a freshman can achieve with just a single year of competition experience. And so I can't tell you how proud I am as his coach and his father to see him achieve such a great achievement as state champion. But you know, really, this is really a great victory, not only for him, but also for all the team members that spent time with him, helping him refine his material, helping him practice. You got to remember that not only are they doing something that many people consider much scarier than dying, but they also do it knowing that they will be judged and given sometimes the harshest imaginable feedback by their judges, you know, and criticism, and as well as constructive advice. And they go into these competitions knowing that they're going to be picked apart and judged down to, you know, their facial expressions, their hand gestures, where they stand, you know, all kinds of small little things that many of us who are not competitive speakers don't think of. So to deal with that pressure and to still compete at the very highest levels of student achievement in this state, you know, I can't tell you how incredible that is for me as a coach to see these kids competing and achieving in that. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Coach. Josh, any comments from you, or are you going to be like Travis?
I just really enjoyed having the opportunity to compete, and I've really enjoyed learning and growing through my speaking skills. I felt that I've become a much better communicator through the speech and debate program. I really enjoy going to competitions. It's a great bonding experience with fellow speech and debate competitors, and it's great to refine public speaking skills, and I'm just really grateful for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. I wish we had time to hear your speech, but we'll have to delay that.
Oh no.
We do have a certificate. Josh, if you'd like to come up. I'd like to invite Corey Telford up for an award in Bonneville Online. Is Corey here? There he is. There you are, Corey.
Hiding in the back corner.
Okay.
So 2 years ago, we started a pharmacy tech program partnering with Idaho State University to get students to earn their basic technical certificate in pharmacy as part of their process through high school. The kids actually go down to Idaho State University and participate in the lab experience down there on Mondays, and are able to, in their senior year, work as a pharmacy tech out in the community. And so far, the 3 students that jumped in from Thunder Ridge and were part of that program have all been hired as pharmacy techs by the places where they were placed, and their companies are going to work with them as they go on to college and attend to work on getting their 4-year degree. This year we were able to have an additional 9 students that were accepted. We have 10 spots as a district to fill. All 9 spots so far were filled by Thunder Ridge for this school year. Sydney Allred is one of those students that was part of that. She participated along with the HOSA chapter at Technical Careers High School at the state competition, because BOHS doesn't have one, so thanks to Lyndon for allowing her to come and participate as part of that. And Sydney won first place in pharmacology, which is identification of all the drugs and everything like that, and everything associated with pharmacy. So she's an amazing kid. She gets to participate in nationals in Dallas, Texas, and is looking forward to that opportunity to go down there. So with that being said, I'll have Sydney come up, and she's an amazing young lady. So and she can comment if she'd like.
Congratulations, Sydney. Go ahead and.
I'm good. I don't have any.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. We do have a certificate for you and like you to come through and shake our hands. Lyndon, you have an award for Tegan Arnold.
Tegan Arnold represented our school district and our high school at Skills USA in small engine technology and knocked a home run. He beat all the competition in Idaho, and now he's preparing to go to compete nationally against all the high schools throughout the nation. So Tegan's a self-motivated student that jumps into everything with both feet and doesn't look back. He's a lot of the training he did on his own outside of our automotive shop, and he's convinced me that when we add our diesel program, we're going to have a component for small engine repair and do side-by-side snow machine. We have industry partners that want to support us in that.
Great.
I'd like to have Tegan come up.
Give Tegan a hand. Good job.
So I just like to say it was a cool experience. I'm really glad I did it. Ron had to convince me pretty rigorously to do it. He told me, he's like, you should compete in this. You're really good in these fields, and I think you'd do good. And I was like, oh, I don't know, Ron, I don't know. And then Ron's like, just do it. You have nothing to lose. So I did it, and what do you know? I ended up winning state, and now I'm
awesome.
going to nationals.
So what specifically did you do to win this award?
So it was power equipment technology / small engines technology. So they were telling us that we were supposed to be working on generators, water pumps, anything that a motor powers on a piece of equipment. But when we got there, it ended up being more like identify parts. One of the stations we had to do, you had a 2-stroke weed eater carb that was completely tore apart, and they gave you a diagram, and I think it was 10 minutes to put it completely together, put it back on the weed eater, adjust the idle on it, and then start it up.
Wow.
And
I'm coming to you.
yeah, I know. and then another one we had to, there was, during the competition they had different parts. So like one of them was you had to identify how to adjust a governor or identify what this part does, and you had to explain it. The written portion of it was mainly that, just identify and do troubleshooting. But other than that, it was pretty fun. So.
Very good. Thank you, Tegan. We've got a certificate for you as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say Tegan's a great example also of what Natalie touched on earlier about collaboration and doing some unique things. He's a football player at Hillcrest that raises the flag for us every day. The last couple of years he's been part of that group. And then he also goes to TCHS and is able to participate in these things. So the opportunities that our students have in District 93 is pretty incredible, and I think that Tegan is a great example of that. With that, also, we've got amazing things happening at Hillcrest High School in our CTE department. Terry Thompson is going to come up here and talk about some things that they're accomplishing with our Adobe certifications and some workplace readiness that our kids are able to accomplish in his classes. So welcome Terry to the microphone.
Great, thanks Terry.
So the big hoorah is for Trayson Deschamps, who is one of my graphics and video students. He is, and I've got the list here, he has achieved and certified in Adobe InDesign, Adobe After Effects, Adobe Animate, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Premiere Pro, and Adobe Photoshop. And checking with the the governing body who does the testing, which is Certiport. As far as we can find, he's the only one in the state of Idaho that has ever achieved 6 certifications. 4 of those have been in this last trimester. As a result of that, he's also in our newer video program that we're getting a great deal of support from you and from Mr. Jenkins in terms of putting this together. He has become quite a video editor. So if there is a question on how to do something, we just look at Trayson, and that's the end of the discussion. We've won in our Video 2 class 2 films at the Kiwanis Film Festival and took a second in the public broadcasting anti-vaping film. So we've got some great things coming through our program right now. Trayson. It's all yours, man.
I just took the same class multiple times, pretty much.
There's only a graphics 1 and a graphics 2, but in order to get done what he wanted to do, we just kind of navigated and turned him loose on it.
6 certifications, impressive. Very, very complimentary of you, Trayson, and thank you so much for your hard work and your representing our school district. So we have a certificate for you.
Can I just make one comment? I've watched this young man do video editing, and he ranks with people who are working daily in the industry. He's very, very competent. So congratulations.
Coming from a man who knows, because he's in the business. Trayson? Levi, Bonneville High School recognitions.
I appreciate being able to take a couple minutes and talk about some of our students. Much like Doug talked about with the state speech, I had an opportunity just a few days ago to go to the state solo ensemble competition. It's a similar format to what Doug described. These kids go in a room with professional people and lots of people watching them all by themselves and perform these pieces. Absolutely blow your mind how accomplished they are in what they're doing, and they have the courage to do so. But I see I've got some of my teachers back here. They're going to know a whole lot more about introducing these kids. So I'm going to invite Mr. Bull and Dr. Baldwin up to talk about their state champions. They don't really like to talk to people, apparently. Get them a wand, they'll be fine.
Well, thank you. It is an honor to be here and to present a few of our students. In the band side of things at Bonneville, we have 2 students to present, and that is Abby Huber and Rebecca Grover. Both have been a part of the band program through their high school career, have been key players, and have won awards multiple years at the state level. So this year, Rebecca Grover received first place on euphonium, on a solo that she played, but also second place on trombone. It's not very often that you have the chops to get through 2 solos at the same competition on the same day within a few hours of each other. So was it a few hours? It was about 1.5, so less than a few hours. That's a lot of playing, and playing one is usually enough.
So the first instrument was what?
Euphonium.
Euphonium.
Or baritone.
Okay.
Depending.
Okay.
Baby tuba. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
And then we had, like say, Abby Huber. Abby plays bassoon. This is her 2nd year in a row winning first place across the state. There's a lot of competitors. There tends to be, they'll pick, depending on how many each district throughout the state is able to send on each instrument. there can be up to 16 to 18 that they're competing with across the state. So that's about the average, I'd say.
Very good.
We had a cellist that, I'm the orchestra director. I believe we've met.
Yes.
We had our cellist won the equivalent, he won first place and was the equivalent of a state champion. I got to sit in the room and listen to him perform. And I've been to lots of professional musicians' recitals. And the two judges were in there and they were completely blown away. Just like watching a professional musician give a recital to a group of professionals. It was really something to behold. So we have a lot of students doing this at this level at Bonneville High School and at Rocky Mountain Middle School. These instrumental and vocal programs are really thriving. And we have, and it's not just at the solo level, it's also at the ensemble level. We have a number of our ensembles that have a streak of superior ratings going that we don't plan on relinquishing anytime soon.
Great,
So,
good to hear.
thank you.
Thank you. So we have Eli, you'll have to help me with Detoncourt. Eli, are you here?
I don't think Eli's here. I think
Okay.
the other two are. While they're coming up, I will add we had 22 students compete.
Wow.
So pretty significant.
I'm so happy to
group.
hear that the program is thriving. I'm really happy about that. So Rebecca Grover and Abby Huber. Any comments from either one of you? Great, okay.
Euphonium and trombone.
Trombone. And Abby, you play the bassoon, yeah, great.
So I just want to add too, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
We had, of the students that went, nearly everybody came home with awards. We had, I think it was 13 awards that we walked home with, just from Bonneville alone. So that was a great representation for the state. I'd like to compare that with other schools and districts, and I think we're way up there.
Right there, great.
Yep.
Would you give this to Eli? Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. Okay,
I'm back.
great.
All right, so I just want to introduce our Hillcrest Student Council. Yeah?
So,
Go ahead.
just before we move away from the student awards, and I should know much better than to get in front of a microphone and talk about something that's near and dear to me, because I'll get all flippin' emotional, and Doug's going to make fun of me, so, but, what was the over-under on that, Doug? So we've just spent the last 30 minutes recognizing students, and I'm sure people may say, man, they do a lot of patting themselves on the back. So number one, I just want to tell the board, thank you for taking the time out of our board meetings to recognize our kids and their outstanding accomplishments. Just for the record, we had 5 out of our 6 high schools, thanks Doug, represented this evening, from everything from performing arts to speech competition to technical career certification, and the level we set is state champion. So even as our teachers just referenced, we had multiple kids that go to state and compete at state and even place at state, and we're not taking time to recognize those kiddos. We're recognizing the students that are literally state champions. So to have all 5 of our high schools represented is just an incredible accomplishment. The only one that's not there, of course, is Lincoln, and there just isn't much opportunity for those kids to compete. And I just think, well, I love the celebration for kids. It's Teacher Appreciation Day, and sorry, we wouldn't have those kids' names up there without hours and hours and hours from our dedicated teachers and coaches that literally work for a pittance when it comes to extracurricular activities to provide these opportunities for our kids. And I just want to just make sure that our teachers and our coaches and our advisors know how much we appreciate them and all the hours they sacrifice to make this possible for our kids.
Go ahead, Ty.
All right, with that, we will bring forward our student council. I've had the pleasure of being here for the presentations from the other high schools throughout the year. I talked to our student council that you guys have already heard a lot about Adopt a Family. You've heard a lot about some homecoming activities. What I've asked them to do is talk a little bit about kind of what sets them apart and some things that they've tried this year that have been very successful, and then and kind of go from there. So we're not kind of repeating ourselves with what you've already heard, because it's very similar. And I think that, like Dr. Wolstenhume just said, I think that that our programs and our activities are a testament to the service, commitment to service that our student councils, our National Honor Societies, and those groups do for our community. So I think that you'll like what you hear from our Hillcrest Student Council, and then we'll jump into the board agenda. So Amanda Wade is their advisor, and here she'll introduce the students.
Thank you, guys. I always say this is one of the highlights of my year, every year. But it's also a little unnerving, because I leave and I'm like, wow, they sound so great, because they are great. But how do we make it better? Like, how do we continue to grow? How do we continue to improve? And every year I shouldn't be. I get a little shocked, but also at the same time just really proud, because at no point do these guys say enough is enough. Like, we do all these things and let's make it bigger. We do all these things and let's have a greater impact in our community. So what I've got with me tonight is 5 of my returning SBOs next year, and then you've also got a senior and 2 seniors in the mix with us here tonight. So they're just going to share some of the new things, as Ty said, that we've either added or done this year that have had a really positive impact on our student body and our community as a whole.
I'm Lincoln Hansen, next year's student body president, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about our homecoming. We're going chronologically in our order, and so that kind of starts out the year. This year we focused a lot on a general theme over all of the activities we do. We chose Candyland for that. And so like our dress-up days, pep assembly, the dance, all those kinds of things, it just revolved around that main theme of Candyland. It helped a lot with attendance. It felt like we got everyone, more than just athletics and people in participation, and we got a lot of huge attendance to different activities and things that we did. We were excited about just a picked theme. Like, it just helped to have a theme, and it like created an environment almost, because we spent a lot of time with decorations and things like that. It was cool to, like, just with coming back to school, it felt a little bit like you were going to Candyland. Like, it was pretty cool with that, and that's what I liked about it. And right now, our 2 leading theme ideas that we have for next is Hunger Games or Wizard of Oz. And so we're just thinking about either of those and activities and things like that with that. And so that's our homecoming, and just keep going with activities.
My name's Morgan Christensen, and I had the awesome opportunity to be elected as the service director for this past year. And to be honest, I kind of thought student council was just going to be a fun hour. I could maybe skip a few days and didn't have to do a whole lot. But I found out pretty soon that it was work, but it was fun and it was meaningful work. My first project that I led and had a lot of help with was our turkey box food drive. And it was really, last year, it was not as successful as it could have been. And so this year we took a lot of greater efforts to expand and to involve the community in our food drive. In this attempt to expand, we included the elementary schools, which was something we hadn't thought about the year before. And so we reached out to elementary schools that fed into Hillcrest, and they all got excited and got involved. the kids loved bringing food, and over the course of a few weeks, we were able to collect over 2,500 pounds of food and donated it to the food bank. It was really awesome because the days we'd go collect, we would find paper towels and toilet paper and different things in these boxes when we had given them this list of turkey or of Thanksgiving items. But it just showed how excited the kids were to be able to give and to help out. And probably a lot of their parents didn't even know that they took things. But it was an awesome experience, and we were able to. There were monetary donations that came in, and about $1,800 worth of funds that were donated were able to be used to help Hillview Elementary School, which we, in our search for the elementary schools that would be interested, we found out that they actually help their own children that aren't as fortunate, and they send them home with foods every weekend, some of these children. And so we were able to buy a bunch of food with those funds that we raised, and we were able to help them out in that cause. It was really just a great experience to help out the community, to come together and to serve others. And yeah.
So my name is Oakley Giles, and I'm this next year's Student Body Service Director. And this year in our Adopt a Family event, we were able to serve over 55 families and individuals. But we wanted to take that tradition and take it to the next level. So we created a hygiene room at our high school, and that was ran during our Adopt a Family event. And anytime they came to pick up their Christmas gifts, we handed them a grocery sack and led them to this room, and it had different hygiene products and feminine care and different household goods and stuff like dish soap and laundry detergent, and the community feedback was incredible on this, and so this is definitely something we want to continue every year. And because of the success, we are in the process of creating a hygiene pantry for our student homeless population. And what I really love about this event is that we get to help so many families and impact the community in such an amazing way that most kids don't realize or understand how much the community needs that. And it's a really cool experience.
Hi, my name is Aiden Madashaw. I'm the current junior class president, and I'll be next year's senior class historian. And as Hillcrest varsity setter, I was asked to co-lead our volleyball food drive, which was just a couple weeks ago. And in the past, schools, they usually just create their own teams and just do their own individual games and just leave it at that. But last year, Hillcrest Student Council decided to create a showcase with the top teams from each school, so they would all compete, and then we would bring them all into one showcase. And then we wanted to add more of like a fundraiser aspect or a service aspect to this. So instead of charging a normal entry fee that would be charged at sports events, we charged we asked for canned food and monetary donations, which we then gave to the Idaho Community Food Bank. And last year we only had Hillcrest and Thunder and Bonneville competing in this. But this year we branded the showcases Let's Feed All with Volleyball. So to include all, we invited Lincoln too, which brought a lot more of a sense of district unity. And then another new addition to the tournament was sponsors and team jerseys. So we had the same design for each jersey, but then different colors for the different schools on the teams. And the thing I probably liked most about this was being able to coach a team. And I think it really helped me get more of like a first-hand view rather than just the outside view if I was just planning it. And it was just super great to see the turnout and the great support from all of the teams. And the whole thing just had a really great community feel to it. And we are excited to have established this Let's Feed All with Volleyball showcase, and are proud to continue this in the years coming.
I am Walker Jackson. I am the current senior class president at Hillcrest, and I'm going to talk about our partnership with the Shannon Wilker Foundation. Over the past couple years, we've partnered with them in order to help raise money and awareness for the foundation, which helps cancer patients in our community. So this year, As a student council, this was my first year in student council. We started out with the Crusade Against Cancer, which we do in June, where we aid them with the Crusade Against Cancer walk, where we go down to Snake River Landing and go on a long walk to raise money and awareness for the foundation. Morgan and I actually tried to run it, and that did not go well for us. But we did end up finishing eventually after some calf pain and shin splints. But it was a good time, and it was a really good way to start out the year with some new people and to get started with this partnership for the year. So I had the pleasure of actually communicating with Shane, who is our friend from the Shannon Wilker Foundation, throughout the year. And with his help, we were able to gain more families that needed our help with Adopt a Family. He sent a few our way from some different institutions, cancer institutions that he knew of. And with his help, we were also able to donate some money to one of our teachers at our school, whose wife recently passed away due to cancer. And going forward, we plan on working with Shane as much as ever and having an athletic event, most likely a football game dedicated to the memory of Terry Belknap.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that, and thank you so much, Amanda, for your great work with these super great students. Do the board, any of the board members have questions or comments for student council?
Wonderful activities.
We do it better than everybody.
Yes, you do.
At least we think we know.
Yeah, great. Dr. Wilson-Hume?
Yeah, I just really appreciate the focus on community service and the wonderful things they did to help and uplift the community. I was a student council advisor at Hillcrest once upon a time, and I'd love hearing like new offices like service director. That's nothing we ever had, and it just really reflects the commitment of our kids and that community spirit that they have, and it means the world. So it's awesome. Great model for the rest of us.
Okay, very good and super good presentation, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
You are welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but we understand if you have other commitments. We are now at the public input portion of our meeting. Pursuant to board policy number 4105, public participation in board meetings. Public input shall be held to a maximum of 1 hour and will provide an opportunity for any board member, administrator, staff member, student, or patron to raise issues of interest. The board will receive such input without comment except to ask germane questions of those speaking. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. The board will take no action relative to any items during the meeting unless on the agenda, but may direct the superintendent to consider such items at a subsequent meeting. Do we have any public input from any of the patrons? Okay. No one signed up tonight. Okay. All right. Now to learning and instruction. Back to Principal Salisbury.
So the trip requests that are on the board agenda, one of them is kind of due to having a new AD and working through some scheduling things and getting things on the agenda in a timely manner. So the tennis trip was something that we just kind of fell through the cracks and we had to add later. We apologize for that and we're trying to do better. The other one, the track one, is really based on some weather and us needing to make some adjustments for trips during the springtime. So again, we apologize for not getting those on the agenda when they were supposed to be, but here we are. Okay. And I don't know what the process is moving forward with that. You have questions for me?
Any questions from the board?
Is the track for state track?
No, it was for the Boise Relays and another trip. I think the tennis trip was due to some weather that we had to find other places to play. So this spring has been a nightmare for any AD, and in my opinion, every AD in East Idaho is AD of the year.
Every spring sport has been.
So anyway, I think I'm just here for clarification on those things.
So I will entertain a motion to allow the Hillcrest High School travel request tennis team to the Capital Player Invitational Tournament in Boise.
So moved.
Moved by Randy Smith,
Second.
second by Paul Jenkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Now I'll entertain a motion for the Hillcrest High School track team to travel to Boise for the Boise Relays.
So moved.
Moved by Paul Jenkins,
Second.
seconded by Randy Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't know if okay, so that motion carries as well. I don't know if I explained that Carissa is with us tonight, but via Zoom, so we appreciate Carissa being part of our meeting tonight. Okay, so those two items were approved, Ty, so you're good to go. You've probably already been. You've already been.
Yeah, they've been.
They've been. Okay, planning personnel items, Heath Jackson.
Thank you. I feel like I cleared the room. And the excitement begins now. Appreciate the opportunity to present to the board tonight. Kent Sawyer, the current principal at Rocky Mountain Middle School, has announced his retirement, and we have done a search for a replacement for the principal position at Rocky Mountain Middle School. We had a pretty extensive review process. I invited 4 of our current principals to review candidates, and we screened those candidates based on their applications, their resumes, narrowed those candidates down based on minimum qualifications, sent them 3 different questions that we asked them to reply to, and then those same principals and myself reviewed those answers and graded or compared them and using a rubric, and identified 6 candidates to bring in for interviews last week. After going through the interview process, the committee nominated or recommended the top 2 candidates to have a second interview on Monday night of this week, where they met with Dr. Wilson-Hugh, myself, Jason, and Guy for a second interview. And tonight we would like to make a recommendation to the school board for Scott Thunstrom to be the principal at Rocky Mountain Middle School. Scott's been a principal for 5 years in our school district. He's currently teaching at Black Canyon this year after having been a assistant principal at Rocky Mountain Middle School and principal at Woodland Hills. We're excited that Scott is ready to come back into the administrative position and put in his application, and just really brought some comfort to the faculty because of the relationship that he had with them during his 5 years as an assistant principal at Rocky Mountain Middle School. So we would recommend Scott to be the next principal at Rocky Mountain Middle School.
Okay, Scott, raise your hand. There you go. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Heath. So we will entertain a motion now for Scott Thunstrom to be the Rocky Mountain Middle School principal.
So moved.
Moved by Paul Jenkins.
Second.
Second by Randy Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, Scott. Okay.
I'm sure he's got some words he'd like to.
Okay, yeah, come on. Come on up.
No, really, I would just express my gratitude to you all as the board, and of course the district leadership team, and really to the staff at Rocky Mountain for their vote of confidence and support. And Rocky Mountain has a really special place in my heart, and so I'm really excited to go home there. So
super.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Dr. Wilson, any thoughts?
No, I just, Heath did a great job, as he always does, in screening through a lot of candidates. I would say Scott brings a lot of qualities to the table, but one thing he certainly has in abundance that none of the other candidates had is a love for Rocky Mountain, and it'll be an awesome experience for him and for the staff there, so we're excited.
Okay, congratulations again. Thanks, Scott. Heath, back to you.
Thank you. Tonight I'm going to just share a little bit of information on population trends. I think that's where we're at on the agenda.
Yes, we are.
Population trends and development. back in March, I thought I got out of this report because I was out of town attending the conference, and Scott said in April, it's pretty busy agenda. Why don't we just put it off, maybe not do it this year? And then last week, we decided that with the bond coming next week and just looking at different developments that are happening throughout our region, specifically in our school district, it'd just be good to highlight some of those key areas that we've been talking about. I'm going to highlight several areas that are focus points in the presentation tonight, but what I've shared with you is a list from the City of Ammon. I appreciate working with John Pym to go through all this information, and John's a great contact with the City of Ammon, and he's a great support in helping us gather this information and provide feedback. As we go through this tonight, you'll notice that there are multiple developments happening in the City of Ammon right now. I'm going to highlight just a handful of those that I think are going to have a pretty immediate impact on the Bonneville School District. But what I do want to point out as we look at all these different developments, there are more than 2,500 units that have been approved by the City of Ammon in these different neighborhoods throughout our school district. And so I've added the schools that these developments will impact and where these students, as they complete these projects, students come to our schools, we're going to see a continual expansion of property development throughout our community. You'll notice that some of these developments, for example, Ammon Village, the very first one, it's not slated to even start till next summer, but they've been very involved, and the City of Ammon has reached out multiple times to myself, Dr. Wilson-Hume, John, getting feedback and input about what kind of impact will a development like this have. If you look at that development, we're talking about almost 700 units in that one development. Just for a point of reference, that development will be directly east of Costco. So you see that field that's sitting there. So it's a combination of apartments, fourplexes, and also some commercial development. But almost 700 different units that are being proposed and approved at this point through the City of Ammon as far as their initial processes. So just wanted to bring this to your attention. I think it's a really good thing for us to continue to collaborate with the City of Ammon and work through the different trends that are coming in our school district. Because of time, I'm not going to go through each of these developments. I highlighted a handful of them that we can come back to if we don't talk about them in the presentation tonight. But there's just a lot of reason to be concerned about what this impact might be for the Bonneville School District. Just knowing that we're at near capacity at this point already with the current population that we have in our school district.
So Heath, did you say that this development has been approved?
It's in the process of being approved. They're working through
the annexation process earlier
so that
last week.
There's a public hearing sign out there, and that's what it's about.
Yes.
Then.
Yes.
So Ammon is going to annex that?
That's the proposal. Yep. And then I just highlighted along the outside of the table which elementary school that would impact, and then just through our boundaries that will have impact on middle schools and high schools. So with that, we'll so I've highlighted and just broke up our district into 3 geographical areas using our high school boundaries as an area to focus on. And really the first area, Bonneville High School, that's that Iona corridor that we've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 years. And the reason for the bond next Tuesday is to create interest and ability for our community to prove a opportunity to build a new elementary school to ease the crowding and continuous growth that we're seeing. So in that Bonneville Rocky Mountain area, you can see there's really 5 key areas that I think are going to have some impact on us fairly immediately.
Can you, excuse me, just, can Carissa see this?
Yeah, we're screen sharing it, so she
Okay,
should be able
great.
to.
Okay. She's, okay.
And then you can see the schools that it's going to have an impact on immediately with the elementary school. So I'm going to show just a few pictures of what these developments look like, both from the parcel viewer as well as some videos that Phil was able to go out and use the drone to get some overheads and see what that looks like. So this is the that first section of Rockwell. So there's several different subdivisions, basically just this quarter or square mile directly to the east of us that Rockwell's been developing. And this is the location that we're proposing to build a school in if the bond passes next week. You can see the continual development as those houses just continue to go up and grow. I'll show you some parcels. Sorry, this one's, I think I must have skipped one. There we go. So this is the development that we're looking at with the parcel viewer.
I don't think there's a light on that. Oh, there is.
Right here. So our school district owns this property here. That's the proposed site for the new elementary school. And then pretty much all of this land in between is owned by Rockwell Homes, Liberty Homes, and they're just continuing to expand. So last year we talked about this development right here being finished, all of this here, and they were starting homes here. All of these homes are now in place and they're expanding further to the west. And then same over here in the Wolf Creek area. Actually, Rockwell's expanding through here also, and then Wolf Creek's expanding in this section here. We did get a plat redivide. John's worked with Liberty. They're looking at redividing what's been approved for this area. He's had some good input with them to make sure that our school site is still preserved in the ways that we need to have access and roads in and out of that area. But this is that area, this square mile right here. That's been that growing impact that we've seen for the last 8 to 12 years. That's had the boom of enrollment at Discovery Elementary, Iona Elementary, and then it also has spilled over to Summit Hills as we've had multiple boundary changes over the last several years to accommodate for this particular growth in this area. We saw those. So the other key areas for the Bonneville Rocky Mountain, this is the Bridgewater Simplicity area. This Bridgewater section is nearing completion. There's about 15 lots still under construction in that area, but you'll see Simplicity as they finish this. They'll just continue out and finish this section. And then right directly across the street, so this is the First Street Residence Apartments. On that City of Ammon plot, you'll see directly across the street about 80 unit apartment complex going in across the street from there too. So again, just key areas that are going to have a more immediate impact than 2 or 3 years down the road.
Heath, can I just ask a quick question?
Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen a plat that's actually connecting Woodbridge across to Bridgewater. Is that correct?
No, they're not connected, and this canal goes all the way across the backside. So there's no connection to that area. And then this last section is just this is Beach's Corner. I don't know what it's called now. I call it Beach's Corner still. This is where you see all the apartments that are going up right along the highway going out to Yukon. What you've seen is this is nearing completion, and now they're working in this section of the field. I anticipate they'll just keep continuing out and getting that developed. It's a little bit challenging to determine what impact is this going to have, because right now as they're finishing these apartment complexes and throughout the school district, we're not seeing a lot of students living in those complexes. We don't know what's going to happen in the near future due to the increase of homes, the cost of homes, and also the insurance. It's likely going to tend for more families to be moving into these apartments, these fourplexes, the townhomes, different options for families that aren't able to get into a single residence, but still are looking for something without renting the property. So this particular development is going to be in the Yukon boundary. Yukon's got a little bit of space to grow, but as we see that shift, it's going to start impacting. I think one of the really critical things about the bond next week is how does this impact residents throughout the district? And as we really look at where we're building an elementary school, that elementary school is going to relieve pressure at multiple schools throughout the district. And so we're potentially looking at moving boundaries for Iona, Discovery, Rimrock, possibly Cloverdale, Summit Hills, as we open up a new school to take the pressure off of primarily Iona and Discovery. It will open up some space in those two schools to take the pressure off of other schools that are further to the south. So it's hard to say at this point, 2 years away from opening an elementary school, what the actual impact will be. But what we're going to see tonight is the growth, although our focus point is here on the north end of the district, it's across the district. And we're going to see overcrowding, increased enrollment, and classroom space being fully occupied each year as we move forward and these developments continue and complete their construction. The next section I want to focus on is the middle of the district, Thunder Ridge and Black Canyon. I've identified really 4 primary areas that are having an immediate impact on these, again impacting Iona and Rimrock. So that's where I talk about a new school shifting kids out of Iona to a new school opens up space to possibly shift kids from Rimrock to Iona or Rimrock to another location. But that would be, Rimrock's going to be that school in the middle to the south end of the district that's nearing capacity and running out of space and classrooms for students in those areas. So I'm going to highlight 4. 2 of these are going to have a lesser impact. That's Freedom Fields and Sunrise Acres. The other 2, because of the size of them and the current capacity at Rimrock and the already being under construction, they're going to have a greater impact on Rimrock immediately. So these different subdivisions, so this is the villas. If this map continued, Rimrock Elementary would sit about right here. This is 21st Street, and this road right here is 47th Street. It's been in for about 2 years. This was phase 3 and 4 of the villas. It wrapped around all of these new homes and down this road, just under 70 homes. There's about 4 or 5 lots still under construction. So in the last 2.5 years, about 70 homes have been completed in the villas. The next phase that they're working on is this road. So this road looks like to me that they're ready to blacktop anytime in the next 2 to 4 weeks. And then they'll start building homes along this road. For just kind of point of clarity, this is 17th Street, and the villas will go all the way through into the back of the villas neighborhood through 17th Street. So as we look at this different phase, you're going to see it on the City of Ammon, the villas, phase 5 and 6. That's this particular phase. And then I think, if I remember correctly, they refer to the villas East Market. East Market is this other section that's staged to start in 24, 25. You have apartment complexes in this area, duplexes, fourplexes, and then an additional apartment complexes in this area, and then commercial growth in this area. So if you look at that East Market on the City of Ammon, we're talking about 70 homes in the next phase of the villas, and then about 300 or 400 homes, I don't remember off the top of my head, going into the rest of those in high density housing in that area. Freedom Fields is a Rockwell development out in Iona. If you go straight down Main Street, you'll run into Freedom Fields. This would be that Rockwell development that we just talked about, and our school would be here on 49th. Freedom Fields is this section. It's nearing completion. It's probably going to be done in the next, I would say, 12 to 18 months at the longest. There's very few lots that don't have a foundation currently in that area. And then Sunrise Acres, a little bit of a different community because of it's a larger lot size, larger homes, developing a little bit slower. Probably will have a lesser of an impact on our elementary schools as we see more sustained families, second, third home opportunities, more middle school, high school. And then obviously it's a smaller development. I think there's about 35 lots in Sunrise Acres. Those developments, like I said, Freedom Fields is nearing completion. and that impact is already being felt. So if you remember Iona Elementary, we made a change last year to accommodate Iona Elementary, and then all of this new growth. We took that new growth that historically had been Iona Elementary, and we're busing those families, this growth here, we're busing those families to Falls Valley. That removed just right around 100 students from Iona. The enrollment at Iona today is almost back up to that 675. So we would have really been in trouble without that change. We would have hit that, we'd have been 750, 800 students and had to been looking for other options to accommodate that growth. So we're seeing that impact immediately right now, but it's mostly happened at this point. Sorry, I hit the button because I get impatient. The last one is a fairly new subdivision. I apologize, it did not copy very well when I put it on there. This is a new subdivision called Brogan Creek. Right now there's about 10 homes in there. There's just under 90 lots in that subdivision. Not sure what happened, Scott. In that Brogan Creek, so if you go down Sunnyside to the Ammon Cemetery, it's almost directly across the street from the Ammon Cemetery. Just a little bit further towards up Sunnyside Road towards Bone, and then Brogan Creek sits kind of down in the swell between the cottages. So this area right here is the cottages. That's the neighborhood that Rimrock Elementary is in off of 21st Street. And through the back side, it will connect to Brogan Creek. So again, a little bit of a, as far as looking at price point for the lots, looking at the size of homes that are going into those areas, probably not as drastic of an impact of some of the Rockwell neighborhoods that have younger families starting, but definitely 90 homes over a period of time are going to impact those schools in that area. So that's one we're going to keep an eye on. I really am not confident on where they're at with selling lots, but last time I talked to one of the real estate agents, there were very few lots available for purchase that in that area. Can you forward slide me? Is that connected now? Or? The last section is just looking at Hillcrest and Sand Creek area, and it felt like for a little bit maybe that was an area that was slowing down, and if you've been out in that area, it's definitely not the case. Silver Springs and Hidden Valley, those are subdivisions directly behind Woodland Hills. I'll show you some pictures of that. That is an area that it's being developed by Rockwell and Liberty Homes, and we're seeing a pretty significant increase of development going on right now. So we're talking 155 lots going in that section. Granite Creek, that's not a new subdivision, but they're opening a new phase of Granite Creek. So that's, if you leave Woodland Hills and go towards the golf course, Granite Creek is the subdivision just to on the south side of the road there towards the golf course. It's opening a new phase, and that next phase will have 44 lots in it. Then Manchester United, as you drive down Ammon Road, right behind the YMCA, between the YMCA and the Olson Farms, you'll see some homes, you'll see some duplexes, and then you'll also see apartment complexes going into that area. Village Green is nearing completion. That's the apartment complexes that are directly behind the DI. It's a tiebreaker boundary. And then Hillcrest Ranch is a new subdivision right on the corner of Sunnyside and Ammon Road, directly behind Maverick. And so if you drive down towards Woodland Hills, you'll see the sign out for Hillcrest Ranch. They are excavating the roads now, and they anticipate opening for building later this summer. So it's moving pretty quickly to get to that next phase to develop. I did have a conversation with this organization, and they are it'll be a slower development. They will build 1 or 2 spec homes, and then they'll just build custom homes as they go, different than other builders in the area who are just going in and finishing the subdivision. It'll be a little bit of a slower build out for that area. So just talking through some of these areas, Silver Springs, this is directly behind Cortland Ridge, which is currently in the Woodland Hills boundaries. It is nearing completion. I'm not sure that there's any lots available. Liberty Homes is the builder for this subdivision, and last I visited, their lots are sold out, but their construction's just delayed getting through all of those. And then on the other side, one more, Scott.
It's coming, I think.
Okay. Same thing. So this is directly behind Woodland Hills, and you can see as those homes go in, you'll just continue. So just to the corner of this subdivision, to the southwest corner, the school district owns a piece of property for an elementary school. And so as we see the continual growth happening on this end of the district, outside of the city of, the city of Ammon, there is other developments. If you go Woodruff and 49th, not
yes.
49th, Woodruff and 49th, there's a 100-unit apartment complex under construction, 4 or 5 buildings that are already going there. Here's a picture of that. If you go towards Cabela's, coming back into town, you'll see that there are kind of a mini neighborhood of smaller homes, and then those fields on both sides of those homes are currently under development for both of those areas. So just a lot happening in the Bonneville School District, much more than I can go into tonight, but it just really wanted to make a point of emphasis as we're looking at the necessity of bonding for an elementary school. There's going to be an immediate impact when that elementary school opens, and it's going to relieve pressure at multiple schools, but it's going probably is going to be a starting point as this development continues, because with 2,500 homes potentially under development in the city of Ammon, more homes in the city of Idaho Falls, more property in the Bonneville County, it's going to be an ongoing challenge for the Bonneville School District to keep up with having the space to educate our students. Does the board have any questions?
I wouldn't mind getting Chris's take on current sales activity, just because of the increase in interest rates and what's happening in the economy. But gosh, the development continues.
Our Zoom is being extremely unreliable this evening, so she was on and off and on and off, and I don't think it's her end. I think it's mine. So we'll see if she joins us.
Any other questions from the board? Yeah, it's amazing.
And this doesn't include the development out by Thunder Ridge. Neither the city of Ammon has looked at annexing, but has not approved. If you remember, that was about a 2,500, 3,000 home development that they're still in discussions on. So at this point, it has not been annexed or approved by the city of Ammon.
Something will probably occur in some format there.
Yes.
Did you say 2,500?
I think it's 3,000.
Over 3,000,
Yeah.
3,200.
The planning,
just over 600 acres.
The city declined that application.
Yeah.
So I'm calling Carissa just so we have her, but her text was sales will continue to sell. So that was her feedback to your question.
Okay, all right, great. Thanks, Carissa.
Thank you
very
Carissa,
much,
sorry.
Heath.
I'm working on Zoom, but we'll just get you by phone for a minute if that's okay.
John?
Did you have any other comments, Chris, on Heath's presentation?
Well, I was just going to respond to Chad's comment that those homes are going to continue to sell, so we just need to prepare to be ready for them to sell.
Okay. John? Architect recommendation for the elementary school.
Yes, some time ago, we went out for bond for an elementary and some additions to our 2 high schools.
Yes.
At that time, we went through the process required by law for a request for qualifications, and we put a group together, And through that process, we came to the selection of NBW architects. That's been a little while ago, and so in visiting with Scott, the executive team, we felt like it was probably a good idea to kind of share with the board where we are with NBW, and then at some point make a declaration of what direction you want to go, assuming that the bond would have passed with an architect for that project. So just to give you an idea of what we've done, when we were in that initial process, sat down and did some schematic design with NBW for that elementary, and with some of the shifting thinking we've had related to the size of that elementary, we sat down again with NBW, and we've put together what we feel like is a pretty good plan for an elementary school. And a lot of the work that has been done, time, NBW has just really donated to us at this point. But my recommendation is that the board formally adopt NBW as the architect for a new elementary school. We've got, I think Scott can get up for you kind of an outline of what we've been looking at as far as a plan. It's a much bigger footprint than what we had originally talked about before. Instead of a school for 600 students, we're talking about a school for 800 students. And so instead of 60,000 square foot school, we're talking about a 72,000 square foot school. And just by way of perspective, this school is designed, will only have 3 less classrooms than Black Canyon Middle School. To give you an idea of how efficient the design is with that in mind, Black Canyon Middle School is 135,000 square feet, and this would be 72 and a half, which is a pretty darn efficient use of space, I feel like, to get everything that we're putting into this design.
Okay, any questions for John?
I have one. Are we, should we first approach them and negotiate a contract with regards of using some of the existing material for the design we're working toward? Instead of fully committing, should we see what they are willing to negotiate the rate at as a percent, or?
So typically, I think, in working with our attorney, Doug, the typical process that the state demands is the board identifies the choice and then you enter into negotiation. If you are unhappy with their fee at that point, the board can move to other architects that were considered in the process and seek a fee that you like better if you feel like your first choice is not being cooperative in that area. Another answer to that, I mean, I have had initiated those discussions with them. We haven't had any formal negotiating because I've told them I'm going to wait until the board makes a formal selection. But I've kind of stated our viewpoint related to the fact that this design is very similar to the designs that they put together for Rigby School District.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to, now, we're approving the use of NBW subject to.
So what we're doing is you're formalizing this selection as our architect for the elementary, and then you're making authorization to enter into basically contract negotiations. And that would be subject to the bond passing.
So yeah, so just for clarity, as John stated, we went through the RFQ process back in 2019 for architects for both the additions at the Hillcrest, Bonneville, and for the elementary school that were on the bond at the time. So we went through that full process. At that time, the board approved that selection, but this is not the same board that was the board at the time. And so it's really up to the board whether you want to continue with and I guess support or ratify that previous board's decision on that. And then if that is the decision of the board, then we'd authorize John to enter into negotiations with them for the fee.
But not doing this, we're starting from square one. So
right, if we don't do this,
to
then we would do.
To approve this.
It would be more timely to approve it, but, and I just think the other thing is, John's also done a lot of work as far as identifying, what is the right design for our elementary school. Our tried and true design that's been in place for the last literally 30 years has served us very well. But as we look at a larger elementary school, that single cafeteria design with a gym and everything all in one space, it simply won't serve the needs of our kids. And so that's why we had to look at a different design. And this one, we've had super positive feedback about. And so that's been helpful that we've had that relationship with the architects of this design for the past 3 years as we've worked to this point.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the architect recommendation of NBW for the proposed elementary school.
Moved by Paul Jenkins.
Second.
Second by Randy Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. We got Carissa's vote, so it's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you, John. Okay, Westmark Stadium.
So we recently received what we had hoped would be bids, turned into one bid for the excavation and work necessary to prepare for a turf field, a pad for bleachers, and all the underground plumbing, water supply, and electricity for the stadium at Hillcrest. The one bid we received was from HK Construction. We did have some other contractors who came and were part of our initial walkthroughs and discussions, but in the end none of them submitted a bid. The bid for the work for phase one is $987,000, which is clearly a significant number, but it is reflective of the going cost for
there goes your budget,
that kind of work.
We got plans. Yep.
How close was that to what you expected?
I expected $1 million.
How did you?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So just maybe before we have a motion on that, just to that question, how are we budget-wise? Because my expectation is if we accept the bid, we're committing the funds.
We have excess of $1 million in our donation account.
In the donation account, so we have that money in the account, so this is the first step to proceeding with it.
Now, question for Ty. So we have had offers to donate some labor. Maybe that's towards other portions of the project, but.
Yeah. So this is just, as John said, just to get the turf in and get all the prep work ready, run all the electricity, like get the groundwork done, run electricity, the scoreboard, the press box, get the footings for the bleachers, all that stuff.
So one of the donations is concrete and some concrete labor. So that price does not include the price of the concrete for the ribbon around the field, the sidewalks, the concrete under the bleachers. All that is part of the donation. And so although HK will do all the prep work to get us ready, we'll have folks coming in, and the concrete's been donated, and the labor also will be.
So with this completion, can we play a football game on August 30th?
That's the plan.
That's what we're shooting for.
But this work will allow a football game to be played, is that?
Without this work, there won't be any football.
Right.
That's a better way to put
What
it.
I'm saying, with this work, we can have a football game, but there's no bleachers yet.
Right, we're working with the bleacher company, the light company, the folks with, that actually put down the playing surface. I mean, we have amounts, of what all that's gonna cost. And in order to reach our goal, we still have some money to raise. Larry's working really hard on that. And we're still working with a variety of groups, and several that have expressed desire to donate. I think if there's something that we're running into that we're going to have to work through is many of them would like to give us money spread over, say, 2 to 3 to 4 years. And they'd give us a substantial amount spread over 2 to 3 to 4 years. Obviously, we need the money now. In talking to some of our vendors, they're willing to work with us in that regard and let us pay for instance, bleachers over a 3-year period, and so forth. And so that's really what we're working through now, is to make sure all our donations line up with what needs to be done.
What is the total amount of funding that has been committed?
So we have $1.5 million from Westmark.
Yes.
Brolam's has committed to pay for the press box on top of the bleachers. We estimate that at about $50,000. We have sold a lot of advertising signs around the building, and I can't give you a perfectly accurate number there, because we have to pay for the signs out of that, and we don't know exactly what the signs will cost, but it's, what we're asking is significantly more than the signs. And then we have a few other groups that have given, some have asked to remain anonymous, that have given us donations as well. And then Larry's still in negotiations with a variety of the local, businesses, hospitals, different groups that have expressed the willingness to become involved, but they are not in a position to hand us $1.5 million like, Westmark did just right up front.
From what we know right now, out of pocket from the district is how much?
So we're not planning on any out of pocket. If you want to say there's something out of pocket from the district, calculate whatever portion of my time I'm putting into it, whatever portion of Larry's time. That's really the expense to the district at this point.
It all goes well.
Yes.
Really the financial commitment we're looking at is the power and those things that'll be in place once the stadium is built, but we're really trying to hold the line that the stadium itself, construction, should come from donated funds.
Well, it's significant. It's awesome. The community stepped forward and participated in this, and a lot of credit to Ty and previous administrations for making this happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, like I say, the Hillcrest guys have done a great job. Larry, can't say enough about his efforts. And, we are rolling along steadfastly.
Okay, so I think we're ready for a motion now.
I'd make a motion that we approve the excavation bid for Westmark Stadium.
Second.
Okay, moved by Randy Smith, second by Paul Jenkins. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thanks, John.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Heath Jackson.
Policy 5040, certified transfers, has been out for 30-day review. We have not received any feedback or comments about that policy, and so tonight we'd ask the board to approve as final adoption policy 5040, certified staff transfers.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Moved by Paul Jenkins.
Second.
Second by Randy Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Next item, Heath.
Yeah. In March, one of our principals, Gene Smith, turned in a resignation. He intended to move to Las Vegas with his family, and over the course of the last several weeks has reconsidered and notified us last week that he would like to stay in the Idaho Falls area and was currently under the process of applying for open positions in the Bonneville School District. Gene is currently the principal at Ammon Elementary. He's been a principal in our district for, I believe, 8 years. This is your 7th year with our district. And so tonight, in your board book, you'll see a letter from Gene asking the board to rescind his resignation and provide him an opportunity to return to the Bonneville School District as with job rights to the Bonneville School District as a teacher or administrator as vacant positions are open.
Okay, entertain a motion on that.
I would so move.
So the motion is that we would rescind Gene's resignation and allow him to accept a position that's available either as a teacher or as an administrator if those opportunities are available.
Yeah, if I could clarify, maybe direction to Dr. Wolstenhume to assign or appoint Gene as a teacher or administrator as vacant positions are open.
Okay.
To authorize him to supervise.
All right, we have a motion from Paul Jenkins.
Second.
We have a second from Randy Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's good news for us.
Welcome back.
I'm sorry. It's like you never left.
Did Carissa vote on that? I didn't hear her.
Carissa, did you have a vote on that one?
I said I forgot to hit unmute.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Carissa.
Just forget that ever happened.
All right, back to Lyndon Oswald for, where's Lyndon?
So I'll just step in on this one.
Yeah.
Science and technology,
So,
okay.
so we always have different state laws, rules, regulations that we get to comply with. We've had a challenge in our ag science department for the past 2 years. Just 2, feels like longer, maybe 3. Just with maintaining stability in that program. So Lyndon hired a teacher. That teacher asked to be released from her contract, if I remember right, her contract in September. He was able to fill it with another teacher who has been doing a good, solid job there, but to continue, for her to be able to continue to teach there, we have to do some things for authorization for her certificate. And so the board, to support her in continuing that work with her certification, needs to declare agriculture, science, and technology as an area of need in Bonneville School District and Technical Careers High School. So it's a provision that's unique to career technical education. We sometimes have to do this. We have to declare an emergency for emergency authorizations in other classrooms, but this seems to be kind of a unique request from the Division of Career Technical Education.
And if I can add, the board did take action in September, October to declare an emergency and hire the current teacher on a 1-year emergency authorization. This just allows her to continue the process to get certified long-term.
Okay, need a motion?
I move that we declare the agricultural science and technology as an area of need in Bonneville Joint School District and the Technical Careers School.
And a second.
Okay, we have a motion from Randy Smith, second from Paul Jenkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, finance and operations, Guy Wainsgard.
Would you like to do the SRO piece
Yeah,
first?
let's do that. Let me find that document on here, Guy.
So when you brought that up, I looked through the document and I found 2 places that it looks like we missed an update. One was right on the first page where it says it, the day we were adopting as July, so we would need to change that date to May. And then there's another area in the document that identifies 6 SROs, but it says 5.
Well, that's the question I had, because the document says the wording is 5, but the number is 6.
Yeah, and it is 6.
It is 6,
Yeah.
so that needs to be corrected, but there's another paragraph further down from the document It says 5 again.
Yeah.
So there's several spots in that document where,
Yeah, those should all read 6, and we can make sure that change occurs.
okay, all right, that's the only thing I wanted to
So I
bring
guess
up
the
on
motion would be to approve the contract with those changes.
that. Okay, we'll entertain that motion.
I would so move.
Moved by Paul Jenkins,
Second.
second by Randy Smith, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, Guy.
All right, so now we have another fee hearing we need to have. Excuse me, when we published the information for the prior month, we did not have the information from USDA for what we needed to increase our child nutrition prices. So what you have before you is a request to increase school lunch prices, as well as a few stragglers on the fee hearing that didn't make it in time for the prior fee hearing. So because it is an increase in fees, we have advertised in the newspaper for 2 weeks and fulfilled all the legal requirements. And then before the board can approve those fees, we need to hold a hearing, which public can have the opportunity to provide input on these fee increases.
Okay, any question from board members on the fees? Are there any patrons that would like to?
No, that's on the side, it's the public for the fee hearing.
Oh, there's no one signed up to speak on this fee hearing, so hearing none, we'll need a motion to approve the fees as outlined.
So moved.
Moved by Randy Smith,
Second.
second by Paul Jenkins, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Aye.
Okay, key financial indicators report, Guy.
So I wanted to spend just a few minutes tonight on what we call special distributions. So when we receive funding from the state, we talk a lot about salary-based apportionment and transportation items. We talk about discretionary funds, federal revenue, and once in a while we talk about some of the individual special distributions, but tonight I'm going to go through each of those and talk about how we get them and what we use them for. So the first one is one that we talk about often, especially when we hold we talk about setting our budget in September. The bond levy equalization. So for our district, we receive approximately 20% of our bond payment each year. That is a calculation based on market value per support unit, the unemployment rate of our county, and the county per capita income. Those factors go into determining how much money we receive, and it has generally been very close to that 20%. Our estimate for 2024 is that we will receive $2.5 million. When we get to the end, we'll see a chart that displays how much we're expecting to get in 24 compared to what we're receiving this year, so we can look at any significant differences. The second category is the school facilities lottery. Anticipate that we'll receive just under $1 million for that in this coming year. That is based on our best 28 weeks average daily attendance, and that is has to be used towards facilities maintenance match, which is a separate report we haven't spent time on in the past, but maybe that's something we could spend some time on in the future, and I could show you how that works. This next line item, the school facilities maintenance match, is only available to our school district if the lottery funding does not meet certain thresholds. Most of the time we meet the threshold with the lottery funds, and so it's been several years since we received anything for the facilities maintenance match. New this year, the school facilities property tax relief. This is related to House Bill 292 that passed the legislature this year. It is to be based on our best 28 weeks. ADA for 23 will determine our funding for next year. Our estimate is that we will receive $4.8 million, and that, according to House Bill 292, has to be used to reduce our bond payments. Our bond payments are more than that, so that's the only thing we have to look at. So that certainly will be a great help to our taxpayers.
So can I just make a comment on that, guys? So that the $2.5 million helps the district in paying the interest on the existing bonds.
Yeah, and it actually, it's really principal and interest.
Okay.
It just comes out to be almost the interest amount.
Almost, yeah, interest. The 4.8 million is a new figure that we anticipate receiving that will reduce the debt service on our bonds for that amount.
Yes.
So our bond payments, not considering the new elementary school, will be roughly $10 million.
Yeah, well, we actually have a principal increase this year, so it's probably closer to 11 million for this coming
closer to 11 million. The $2.5 million will come off from that because that will go towards interest payments mostly. And then the 4.8 million, so on $11 million debt service, 7.3, thanks Scott, 7.3 million less dollars that will have to essentially assess the taxpayers for.
Right, so it leaves probably not quite 4 million for bonds, which is about where we were this year, so should get us pretty close to the same amount that we asked for last year. Of course, that doesn't take into consideration what happens next week.
So I just hope that our patrons have a feel for this and have an understanding of it, because it's very substantial, and you know, taxpayers have been asking for tax relief, property tax relief, and so this is substantial, very helpful.
It is. When we look at projections for future years, it's a little hard to anticipate, because part of the formula that generates the funding to give to schools is based on how much surplus is left in the state coffers. And so that we won't know that number until June 30th this year. And so each year it's just going to be dependent upon that surplus.
Chad, if I could just, I think it's helpful as we look at that, because this is new legislation. Really haven't had a lot of questions from our patrons about it. I just think it's worth highlighting that had this money come to the district to say, this is for districts to use to pay for your existing facilities needs, we really wouldn't have to go out to bond for the elementary school. That $4.8 million would have paid for our elementary school in the next 10 years. But instead, it's to pay down bonds that our voters have already approved. So it really is property tax relief. There's not an extra new dollar that will end up in our accounts as a result of this. So it's just, again, I've had a little bit of concern that people may be hearing that there's, $5 million coming to the district. Why aren't we using that to pay for the elementary school? And the bottom line is, it really doesn't. It comes through us, but at the end of the day, it's going to be our property taxpayers that have the benefit of that $4.8 million.
It has to pay the oldest bonds first?
No, you just have to pay bonds first. And so the sequence is bonds and then supplemental levies with a lowercase s, and that's still kind of an interesting thing. But fortunately, we don't have to worry about that, because as we've talked about, we have $10 to $11 million a year annually that we have in bond payments, and so that's where this money will go to the benefit of our taxpayers.
Originally, I thought that what the legislation meant was we were to use that money to pay principal down, and you really can't do that because the bonds, there's nothing callable for the.
Right, yep. Right. Yep, so it's just to pay the bond payment.
Just our yearly payment.
It will go directly towards the debt service, which will be an immediate tax relief for the voters, or for the patrons.
Yep. Yeah, so that's exciting to see that, because that is a big difference. The last item on this slide is just replacement tax, and this generates $248,000 for us. This has to do with years ago when they made a change to the exemption in both the agriculture property tax, and then 4 or 5 years ago when they made some changes to personal property taxes. School districts would have been penalized, and so they've calculated amount, so we get that $248,000 every year. But then it's subtracted from whatever we levy in September, so that we're not getting it twice. Okay. The next slide will show technology and safety. And I'll go ahead and keep talking, and hopefully it will catch up. So there's 3 distributions related to technology and safety. The first one is our classroom technology. We receive about $1.2 million from that, or we expect to receive $1.2 million. That again is based on our midterm ADA. The main use for those funds has been Chromebooks, computers, PowerSchool, and software licenses that affect all of our schools and buildings. Another technology-related item is called IT staffing. This year we're receiving 0. The legislature this year took that money and subtracted it and added it into discretionary, so basically removed one line item. Just it's a general offset, when we were receiving $120,000, it offsets our IT staffing costs, which are substantially higher than $120,000. And then the third item, only grouped this way because these are the 3 items that Gordon Howard deals with. We receive $153,000 for safe and drug-free schools. That money is used for the DARE program, partial costs of the SRO contract, Hope Squad expenditures, as well as safety improvements throughout the district. The next area is what I refer to as the general and pass-through. So for advanced opportunities where students receive so much money for dual credit classes and overload courses, we receive about $500,000. It's really a pass-through because that money turns around and goes right back out to the institutions or those who are providing those courses. So it's just pretty much an in and an out. We're going to receive about $50,000 in content and curriculum, which is just an offset to the curriculum. We have a district budget of $500,000 a year, so it's just a little bit to backfill. Continuous improvement is a very small amount. When the school board or superintendent is trained in qualifying expenditures, we can apply for reimbursement from the State Department. So when some of the classes at the Idaho School Boards Association training are reimbursable, and we track that.
Did we use it all?
No, you can go up to $4,000 a year.
We went to a lot of classes.
We went to a lot of classes. Not all of them are reimbursable. Yep. And then the last item here is the math and science, which is just a dollar amount per regular high school, and it's just used to offset the math and science teachers. Because we spend more than that, there's nothing extra that we have to do for that. And then the last category is what I will refer to as the interventions, professional development, and guidance. So the first one is college and career advisors, where it's based on our enrollment in grades 8 through 12. We use that funding for college and career staffing that service the students in those grades. We receive $124,000 for English language learners. That is under Rex Miller, and we use that we have a certified teacher and then also some aides and some translating services. Next one is our literacy funds. We were at a little higher amount. The way the state does these special distributions, most of the time, the allocation statewide stays the same. And so as districts grow, we're going to get less per student. And so this is down about $200,000 from where we have been this year. It's based on the K-3 enrollment plus reading assessment proficiency. These funds are used for Lexia, K-3 Chromebooks, and all-day kindergarten.
So that reduction is because as a state we grew and there's a total allocation set at the state level?
Yes. Yep.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Backwards.
Well, it's hard to,
We grow, we should.
Yeah, we have a set plan saying we need this many instructional coaches, this many all-day kindergarten teachers, this many Chromebooks. So if that budget shrinks, that's going to have an adverse impact on what we're doing.
The literacy, if it goes up, they cut your funds?
So it's not that the literacy went up, it's that the total enrollment in the state went up, and so now we're dividing that total dollar amount by more students.
Right, but it says reading, assessment, and proficiency. So
Right.
if you get more proficient, you get less money?
No, they actually flipped that. That used to be how it was, and now they flipped it so that actually the more students that meet proficiency, the more funding we receive, but not at the overall dollar amounts going down.
And this is based, the state's had a hard time projecting some of these amounts because, as we'll talk about in just a minute, as we go back to average daily attendance, that puts a lot of these formulas in some different calculations because of what's called protection that we'll get into in a minute. So it's possible that we will still receive more, we just don't know till the state gets data in the fall.
So just, it's fun. We have to have a budget set in June, but we don't know how much money we'll be getting from the state till fall. So I guess that's probably how private business works too, right? You know what your revenue is till you make your sales, but it makes it really challenging to plan.
The next item is professional development, budgeting $462,000 for the coming year based on our certificated FTE count, and that is used all for staff professional development. This coming summer, the majority of that would be used for the Solution Tree Conference in August. And then the final item on there is $200,000 for remediation. It's based on student count of those not meeting ISAT proficiency, and that is spent on the Renaissance platform, which is about $200,000. Matches pretty closely to that.
So that is one where the better our students do, the less money we'll receive on that one.
So here it captures the first part of that. You can see what we're projected to receive and what is estimated for 24 compared to 23. The lottery, last year there was I don't know if surplus is the right word, but there was extra money in the surplus, or in the lottery, so we had a little bit of a bump, but this year we should be back to our normal distribution for lottery. Of course, we have the $4.8 million in property tax relief, and then the IT staffing goes away. The classroom technology is one that was cut several years ago in response to COVID. So this is the first year that we're getting back to our normal distribution for classroom technology.
Is the reduction in the bond levy equalization due to the increase in the homeowner's exemption and then the market value going down, or do you know what the difference is there?
I'd have to go back. Eric gave me an estimate, and it was down this year for a reason, and now I can't remember what the reason. There was a piece I don't remember, but I can get that. And then the second piece just shows.
Sorry, just to comment on that. Probably the homeowner's exemption, because that went up.
Yeah, so we should.
I question whether or not the assessed values will go up. It might a tiny bit, but certainly not.
Yeah, so the estimate I had from Eric was prior to that law passing, so I'm not sure how that law.
But we should have a number of new construction projects going on the assessor's books that would help us.
Yeah.
That weren't on last year.
Right, those would have had to be completed before January 1st, right? About that right, so. So not new construction this year, but construction was completed last year. Yeah, but I do think the homeowner's exemption is going to likely deflate our market value, which it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a correction. I think it was overly inflated last year, so it would make sense there'd be some deflation to it.
And then you can just see the The difference is the content and curriculum is one area that was eliminated also after COVID in response to state funding, so we're receiving that $50,000 back this year. So that is the end of that part of the presentation. If there's any questions or comments regarding those. Not the most exciting, but hopefully learned a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Guy, that was good.
I just think, just to underscore, probably one area that we get the most questions are expenditures related to professional development. It doesn't happen a lot, but we do get some questions of, well, why are you spending money on sending teachers to this, or why the Solution Tree Conference that's coming in, it's going to be a remarkable experience. Last time we got a few questions of why are you spending the money there and not putting it into teachers' pockets or buying computers, and it is because we have a line item for professional learning. Personally, I believe that increasing our professional learning is a way to increase our student success, and so I think it's a great investment. But there's a bottom line there that these funds cannot be used for any other purposes except for professional learning for our certified staff.
All right, so that'll move us on to the next item, which is attendance versus enrollment funding. So just a little bit of history. Back in 1995 is when the current funding formula came into place. It changed the funding to be based on average daily attendance, which is then factored into what the state calls classroom units. And everything stayed the same until fiscal year 2020 when COVID came. There were some special rules enacted that year that made it so that we did not lose funding even though there were no students in class for the last, or physically in class for the last couple of months when we were forced to online learning and instruction. In fiscal years 21 through 23, the legislature continued to appropriate based on average daily attendance, but the state board used their authority to pass temporary rules that basically said anywhere where it says attendance, we're going to use enrollment in place. And so that has been in place for the last 3 years. Last year, in March of 22, there was a bill that would have moved enrollment to, or funding to enrollment permanently, passed both the House and the Senate, but when it got to the governor, he vetoed that bill. Then in April of 23, the school budgets were appropriated for FY24, again using attendance, and we have been told that there will be no more temporary rules, that really the COVID emergency is no longer, they're no longer able to use that as a temporary rule to move us to enrollment. So what does that mean to us? So if we would have remained on enrollment funding for the coming school year, we would be receiving in state funds $97.8 million. When we look at what we will receive, because we're going back to average daily attendance, it's 92.1. So funding loss of $5.7 million. So that would almost seem like we need to cut $5.7 million out of our budget, but we don't, because that's $5.7 million that we didn't have. So there certainly are some things we need to adjust because we're adjusting back to attendance, but it's not the full 5.7. But that is a pretty major impact because that's how we've been operating for the last 3 years. We are receiving around $10 million more in state funds this year, so it's still a great thing. The legislature did appropriate quite a bit more money for schools this year.
So Guy, when is the enrollment number provided to the state to provide the funding for the next budget year? I mean, so next August, when we start school, we've got to turn in an enrollment number.
Right. So we have, I think there are 6 different uploads, data uploads we do throughout the year that includes all of our enrollment, all of our attendance, all of our teacher placement, just lots of data fields that are reported to the state all throughout the year. The enrollment, well, the attendance number that will be our midterm next year, where most of our funding is based on our first day of school through the first Friday in November. So the beginning of the year is critical for our attendance. However, because we're going to drop substantially. So pre-COVID, I think this is probably on the next slide. I might have put these in the, no, maybe I.
Well, I guess where I'm coming from is if we can improve attendance next fall,
so
we could maybe soften that funding loss a little bit.
Possibly. So there's a provision in state statute known as protection for schools that says if we drop below 97% of our prior year's ADA, or because ADA was defined as enrollment, so if we drop below 97% of this year's enrollment, we will be protected at 97%. So we can only really lose that 3% this year. So we'll see here in a minute that the only way we could increase our units this year is to have greater than 95% attendance. We weren't even at that level before COVID, and so the chances of that are pretty small. Pretty small. We're actually averaging around 90% right now. So, so this chart gives us an idea of what's going to happen, what has happened, and what's going to happen in the future. We grow about 300 students per year, and so the top shaded section is the numbers that are based on actual history. So for fiscal year 23, based on enrollment, we were at 682 units. We didn't drop, so the protection floor didn't matter. There's a protection unit cost. So the statute reads, anytime a school district uses that protection, that doesn't come from an extra pot of state money, all the schools in Idaho have to fund that, and so we receive a little bit of a reduction. In prior years, that unit cost has been very small, so it hasn't really impacted us. Now going forward to 2024, if we were to look at our actual units, we will come in at 618. If we were to be funded on that, we would be having a much different conversation. But we will be funded at 97% basically of the 682. So we'll be funded at 662. And then we're going to lose 20 units because everybody pretty much statewide is going to be protected at that 97%. So the way they recapture that is by reducing us by other units. So that means our final funded units for the year will be 642.
School finance is simple, isn't it?
Well, so units, just to clarify, units does not necessarily mean the number of teachers, because we hire more certified personnel than what the units reflect.
Right. So
that's why we need the supplemental levy.
Right. Units is basically a classroom. And so if you think of a classroom, you're going to have a teacher, but you're also going to have part of a counselor, part of a principal, part of classified. And so you have all these different pieces. The multiplier to know how many certificated staff, and we'll see that here in just a minute, is 1.1. Tells you how many certificated positions they will fund based on that 642.
Okay, thank you.
So we need to look also at the next years, because fiscal year 25, we will be, if we continue growing at 300 students and we continue at our 90% attendance, then our actual units in fiscal year 25 would come in at 632. Our protected number is 599, so our actual units are actually higher, but we would still be down to 632 units for funding. So going back to ADA is not just a one-year problem. It's going to take us a couple years to get back in line with where we are with the state, assuming they don't change their funding method. So let's see what that means in terms of what actually happens in our district for people. So if we use FY23 as an example, we had 682 funded units. We get certificated or teacher FTE at 1.1, so that means we were funded for 750 teachers. We actually had 733. That's because of the flexibility that we're allowed. The resolution we've had to increase flexibility allows us to have fewer FTE than we're funded for. And then when we look at the classified side of the world,
Can I just pause there for 1 second? So by hiring fewer teachers than we're funded for, that allows us to pay teachers more than we receive from the state for their salaries or benefits. So that's how we try to not hire at 100%, so that we can try to increase salaries for the people that we have.
So was that the issue last year when we sponsored the resolution with Pocatello?
Right.
Yes.
Was to try to increase that flexibility. So at our current law, we have to hire, this year it was 97% of the teachers that we are funded for, or else we would lose funding. Where other districts in the state are able to hire as few as 90% and still receive full funding.
But that resolution was approved at our meeting, but it was not taken up by the legislature.
Correct, yeah. The legislative sponsor we had for it was moved to a different committee, so we really didn't have anybody to carry the ball on that one for us this year.
On the classified side, the 682 units fund at 0.375, so it funds us for 256 FTE, and we had 328. And so for reference down at the bottom there, when we talk about FTE, it gets a little bit confusing between certified and classified. The way the state defines a certified FTE is whatever we have in our master agreement. So our master agreement is 190 days for our certificated staff. So that times 8 hours a day is what the state considers 1 FTE. When you move to the classified side of the world, you have to take 260 days, 8 hours a day. That equals 1 FTE in the classified. So when we show that we have 328 actual, that is not the number of people we have. We probably have closer to 5, maybe almost 600 classified employees.
Paid for out of state general funds.
Right.
So essentially by hiring classified staff, not on a full year, but on a 190-day contract like our, not a contract, but a 190-day calendar like our teachers, and when they work 7.5 or 7 hours a day, that increases the number of classified employees we can hire because we're not hiring them year-round. But we do have still probably around 40 to 50, I would say, that are probably on year-round calendars.
So the state really does not recognize the number of classified employees that are actually needed.
Yeah, we're
in our district.
Well, so to that point, not to sidetrack the conversation, but what the state did do this year, and I think we need to give credit where credit's due. They allocated an additional $96 million in funding for classified pay, in addition to a 4% increase in our salary-based apportionment for classified. So they looked at it and they said, okay, across the state, here's how much more districts are paying their classified people. So there was an attempt this year to address that. The problem is if we don't use that money to increase pay, then we just get farther and farther behind either what surrounding districts are paying their classified or what McDonald's is paying classified. So that helped, but it's not going to help. Overall, it's really not, because we're so far behind the pay already with our classified employees.
So when you run those figures against what we project our protected units in 24 to be, and then our units in 25, you can see that our funding for both teachers and classified staff will continue to go down over the next 2 years until we start catching up in fiscal year 26. So back to your question earlier, can we increase our units by increasing attendance this year? Again, we would have to get to 95% average attendance to increase our units. I would love to be able to say we could do that, but based on what we've seen, it's probably not likely. So what are we doing in response to this shift? So in April, once this information became known, district implemented a soft hiring freeze. So that really doesn't affect certified staff because they are under contract, but it does affect classified staff. And so we have looked very hard. Anytime a classified person has resigned, the thought has been, can we get by with them or without them for the rest of the year, or is it a critical position that has to be hired? So we're doing that to help out. And then also we will be using ESSER funds. We've asked the question before, what's the best way to use our ESSER funds? Well, the state kind of made that decision for us. we sent out surveys and asked, but really if we didn't have the ESSER funds, we would be making some pretty substantial cuts for next year. So we are planning to use several $1 million of ESSER to balance next year, and then in 25 we will have to make some additional cuts. Again, it depends on what happens with state funding and other things, but we can get through next year with ESSER funds. And then the last bullet point there actually moves us to the next agenda item, is that we would like to ask the Board of Trustees to declare a reduction in force for our certificated staff for fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, according to Board Policy 5830.
Does there have to be a certain amount that you, with the reduction declares? Or it's just open to, we're acknowledging that's going to happen?
Yeah, so I don't see that this is going to have a huge impact. It's only going to be used where it makes sense, and so there's no limits, minimums or maximums. And it's probably getting into the area where Heath and Scott would want to jump in. Because it's very dependent upon programs, enrollment, and
So I really think next year is a year where this is going to come into play, and our thought process is from now until August, we will see some teacher resignations, and if there are places where we know that we're overstaffed, it makes more sense to make the cut now rather than to retain somebody in a position or hire somebody in a position that is going to have to turn around and be eliminated next year. So we're really going to be very, very intentional this year. We don't anticipate a lot, but there will likely be a few positions that are eliminated this year. But then starting next year, knowing that this will be in place, we'll have a different plan as we see teacher resignations for the following school year. But there are some just very, very limited places where we know already that we're going to want to look at this policy.
So I don't see any reps from BEA. What would be their take on this?
So we did
Board
share.
action.
Yeah, so we did share this with the BEA in negotiations. The other when we opened 2 weeks ago. Not to be trite, but I quoted. Now I'm going to draw a blank, but A Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens, where it literally is the best of times and the worst of times for our teachers, because at the same time that we're talking about asking the board to declare a reduction in force, we're also talking about giving our teachers a historic pay raise, and it's because that those are the cards we're dealt. We're told, here is the money that needs to go to teacher pay raises or compensation increases is probably a better way to phrase that. And at the same time, you're shifting to ADA and you're going to have to look at reducing positions. So It really is truly the best of times and worst of times. For our teachers that aren't affected by the RIF, again, they'll be making historically high salaries. But for us as a district to stay financially solvent, we're going to have to match our teaching number of teachers we have with the number we're provided from the state. So that's why it's critical that we go through this really challenging process. Anything else? I mean, so I guess the short answer to your question is they weren't happy about it. That's the answer to your question. It certainly created some angst and anxiety among them. We had a good conversation, explained that we're going to be very deliberate, but it certainly creates a sense of panic with our teachers, and it's just somewhat mind-boggling to me that in a district that grows by 300 students every year, we have to look, and that has been so careful in the number of teachers we hire to make sure we're not over-hiring, that we're still finding ourselves in this position that we have to reduce staff. So Heath, I'll let you jump in.
I just wanted to make sure that
they are aware.
They are aware,
yep.
And there is an expectation, and we've been forthright and
yeah.
With our teachers.
We're able to make some reductions this year based on principals looking at master schedules, principals looking at can we accommodate one less teacher in this area, as we've eliminated a handful of positions doing that. We do have one or two schools that are significantly overstaffed that we'll be looking at potentially implementing a RIF before the end of the school year to balance that school back down where it needs to be. Right now, we're looking at eliminating 3 positions from that school. 2 of those teachers, one of them has resigned, or transferred to another school already. Another one has resigned and is moving out of the area, and others are applying for other open positions. So it's possible that we can still get through without having to do a RIF in the next several weeks, but it's got to be something we consider and look at as well. Next year, I'm much more comfortable knowing that if I look back at the last 4 years, we have enough teacher turnover in the district that we could have made those reductions without having to go through a RIF. The impact is going to be increased class sizes or doing the same work with more students with less teachers.
If I may answer Randy's question, is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Our policy states elimination of certified positions may occur as a result of, but not limited to, and the relevant one is item D, financial conditions or limitations of the district. So it doesn't specify what that is, but the reality is this is about as drastic of a situation as I've seen since the 2009 recession, which was the last time we had to do a reduction in force.
This is in anticipation of. I mean, we know, well, that's probably not accurate because we know we have got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's already happening, and it's only because of the financial conservatism, is that the right word, of the board and Guy, that we've held on to our ESSER dollars. We've waited for a rainy day. We knew that next year is the last year we had to expend those, but we've tried to be just really, really careful because we've all been around long enough to know that we just don't know what hand we're going to get dealt from the state. So that is our saving grace, is that we have enough money that we can bridge the gap next year and then be really intentional in how we reduce staff for the following year.
So this motion carries through 2025.
Yeah, that's what we would ask is, and there's, if we don't do an adequate enough job next year, then we may have to do it one more year until those numbers balance out. But I really feel like 1 year should get us there because we continue to grow, and that certainly helps with, as our student population grows, that's fewer positions we would have to eliminate.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve for the fiscal year 24 and 25 a declaration of reduction in force.
Second.
It's been moved by Randy Smith and seconded by Paul Jenkins that we approve the fiscal year 24, fiscal year 25 declaration of reduction in force. All in?
Certified staff, right?
Yep, for certified
For
staff.
certified staff. Yeah, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. we still have Carissa?
Yep, we do. She looks frozen, so.
Carissa, did you vote? I think she did.
Yes, I said aye.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just paused there for a minute, so I appreciate that. So, sounds like voting was unanimous, motion carries.
Okay, we'll get through these next little bits.
Okay, go ahead.
As quickly as we can. So the first one is an update from our communications department. So Phil's got a quick video for us in a review of this year's communications. It may just sit and spin. So that may go to the board in my board report. So maybe what we'll do is we'll put that out into our update, and then I'll make sure we share that with the board. So Phil did a good job putting the video together, but internet connectivity is not playing really well tonight. So while that's spinning, let me just share one other quick. So speaking of our weekly updates, Phil, don't interrupt me. Yeah.
Half-hour communications.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. So, okay, that's, there's a good picture for you. So that kind of summarizes how we're all feeling right at the moment. So, okay. So this year we did use a new platform to do our weekly communication with parents. You know, it's interesting. I think at the start of every year we talk about this is something we started during COVID. We really have to keep doing it. Even as I was having a conversation with Carla Orange, who's been selected as the new superintendent of District 91, she said, you really have something to share every week, and it's amazing that on a weekly basis there are always great things to share about our district with our patrons. There's important news to share with them, and so this is something, our Thursdays are just incredibly busy because we do a principal weekly newsletter, and it seemed like that was enough just to keep us busy on Thursdays, and now to that we've added an employee newsletter, which is shown in gray with a number of views of that, and a family newsletter. So Thursday really is like our key communication day, just trying to share that critical information. And as you can see, we've averaged right around 9,000 views each week, very consistently with our parents, and right around 2,000 views a week with our between 1,700 and 2,000 views with our employees. So certainly something we're going to keep doing, and S'mores provided a lot of interactivity, gives us the opportunity to embed videos like the one that Phil just did, and something that we intend to continue to do to keep engaged with our parents and our employees. So that's just kind of the tail end of the report that I gave you last month on the tools we're using to listen to our employees and our families as well. So
and Monday, this coming Monday night is
D93 Live.
D93
Yep.
Live, and that'll be an important one
Yep.
because the night before the election.
Yeah, so just on that, so we'll include, of course, election information that's on Tuesday in our weekly updates tomorrow. We'll include the D93 Live to give people a chance to ask any questions that they may have the night before the election. And then Tuesday morning, we'll just do a quick text reminder to remind people to get out and vote on Tuesday. So. Sorry we didn't get to see your video, Phil, but we'll get it out there. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Phil. So the next item, if you're okay, Chairman Dance, as the board is aware, we recently participated in a class action lawsuit with other school districts across the country against Juul and other purveyors of vape products for their marketing towards students. Anderson, Julian Hall, that's probably the largest school law firm in the state of Idaho, is engaging with districts in a social media lawsuit, and really based on very similar types of approach, and that is basically saying that certain social media providers have intentionally targeted students with their marketing, and as a result of the content of some of those platforms, it has had a detrimental impact on our students' mental health. So we've talked about this a bit over the last few weeks, and I would like to ask the board to enjoin that lawsuit, and so that we can help address the mental health needs of our students that I do believe has been adversely impacted by social media and especially their targeting towards students.
Any comments from the board or questions on that? How much did we, now, we will receive some settlement as a result of the vaping.
Yeah, so the vape one,
The Juul.
Yeah, so there's, right now there's 2 defendants in that suit. The first one has settled, and as a result of that, we'll receive, I think my best estimate is about $180,000 to $200,000 after the attorneys have their fees paid from that. But the second defendant in that suit, which is, it's a big tobacco company name, but they've rebranded their name, so I can't remember which one, so I don't want to speak and name the wrong one. But anyway, they have not settled, and so we still anticipate that there's going to be a future settlement with them too. So the first settlement was just shy of $300,000. Well, it's around $300,000, and then I think we're about 60% of that for after attorney's fees.
Well, certainly there's enough data out there, and there's a lot of national attention with regards to the effect that social media has had on our students, particularly young women of high school age, junior or middle school and high school age.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of it.
Yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve participation in the social media litigation.
I move that we participate in the social media litigation.
Moved by Paul Jenkins.
Second.
Seconded by Randy Smith.
May I just ask a quick, Sam, did they have the resolution in their packet? Okay.
It is.
And maybe if we could just say, and support the resolution as provided to the board, and that way we can sign that exact resolution that Amy White has asked for.
It is in our board book.
Yeah, so if we could just add that maybe to the motion to authorize the resolution that's provided in the board packet.
And to authorize the resolution that is provided in the board packet.
Thank you.
With the same second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
The next item, Laura Wallace, who's here, who's got a great eye for policy, brought to our attention that we have a policy that was not updated after the state law changed regarding when candidates take office. And I think, I don't know if I got is that the right one, Sam? Is it 1100? Okay, I just don't have it redlined. I should have had the red line copy. So basically, this still referenced July, and so we changed it to match the language in state statute, as well as the other policy that we did update that did match the state statute. So this is different than normal. We'll just ask for immediate approval of this because it's a technical correction that's out of compliance with state law.
So it doesn't have to go to a 30-day review?
It could, but there's no reason for it to because it's out of compliance with state law, so we don't follow it anyway.
Okay.
I move that we approve policy 1100 membership for final adoption as presented.
Second.
Moved by Randy Smith, seconded by Paul Jenkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, a few items left on board closing business. So as most of you, well, as you're all aware, Greg Calder from Zone 1 resigned, moved from the area, and so there has been a vacancy in Zone 1. We have interviewed 5 excellent candidates, and all have had special talents and abilities to contribute to this board. And so I just want to congratulate all of the applicants, and it was a difficult decision, and but the board has had an opportunity to deliberate. And so I will just ask if there are any other comments from the board members regarding the candidates and our deliberation.
I think we were all happy to see 5 people. We were worried we'd get any, and that they were all good candidates, and we appreciate them putting themselves out there. and presenting to help further our district. So I was surprised, happy, and relieved we had 5.
So I would just comment that this appointment is through December 31st, 2023. And so the election for Zone 1 will be in November of 2023 for another 4-year term. So the candidate, any of the candidates are, of course, free to apply to run in November for this position. So tonight's appointment, and we would hope that the person that is appointed would also run at that time. But so that being said, I would entertain any nominations from the board to fill Zone 1 Board of Trustees position.
Chairman Dance, I would like to nominate Mindy Clayton to fill as Zone 1 trustee on the Bonneville School District 93 School Board.
We have a nomination for Mindy Clayton to fill that position. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second for Mindy Clayton to fill that position. We'll now take a vote on that nomination. Are there other nominations that board members would like to present? Hearing none, we will now vote on the nomination for Mindy Clayton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carissa, did you hear the nomination? She did. Okay, she voted aye. So the voting appears to be unanimous. So I would just point out that all of these applicants have been involved in the district in some form, and others more than some, but certainly with their own family members, and I would encourage that participation to continue. And so we appreciate all that those applicants have done for the school board. So Mindy, congratulations, you're here, so you can just wave. And now Dr. Wilson-Hume, as I understand it, we will swear her in, if that's the right terminology, at the next board meeting, or would we do it next Wednesday?
So I think it could be either one. But we are planning on next Wednesday being a meeting where we will be taking board action, and so whatever probably Mindy would like to do is great. And I do have one other comment. Is that all right,
yes,
Chairman? So, we had a very similar situation the last time that we appointed somebody to the board, but I didn't sit in on the interviews tonight. I was working at my desk, but could hear some of it. I think one thing in common with all of our candidates for this position is a desire to serve the community and to serve the school district. And so while this seat has been filled, we do know that we will need to be working on our facilities plan, regardless of the outcome of Tuesday. That, as Heath explained very well tonight, we are a growing district and we have a lot of things we have to consider. And so we will be reconvening our facilities committee, and we would love to have great people serve on that committee. Jason also offers a lovely opportunity to serve on a curriculum adoption committee. So if you're a reader and you want to read a lot of books, then we have an opportunity to read a lot of novels and make sure that they are ones that we would recommend to the board for adoption. So there is ample opportunity for involvement in this process, and it's a great way to get to know the district and to be part of those critical decisions we're making.
Okay. Dr. Wilson. One more item that I do want to share, and it's with great emotion that I am submitting my letter of resignation tonight. And we'll be moving from the area later this fall, and so, but I will be available through the summer, so my resignation will be effective July 30th, 2023. And the thought process there is to give the board an opportunity to select a replacement in June, and so that, and then have an opportunity for a new Board of Trustees election. So I've very much enjoyed serving, and particularly with this group. And I just want you all to know that, and very much enjoyed participating with the administration. Dr. Wilson, you've been awesome, and I've very much appreciated working with you, and I would like to thank the patrons who have supported me in this as well. So I will submit this to the board, the clerk of the board, and move forward. As my wife says, you have to deal with change, and you move forward with faith. So that's what we'll do. All right.
I'm really trying not to take these resignations personally, but I think COVID's had an impact on all of us. So I appreciate that, Chad. You've just done a remarkable job through just a lot of tough years.
Well, it's been a great 6 years. The first 2 or 3 years were tougher.
COVID wasn't easy either, so you've just handled a lot of really tough issues with nothing but grace and diplomacy, and it's just been a remarkable example, and I just really appreciate the steadfastness of our board over the past 4 years. We were remarkably stable, and we were unique not just in the country but in our state with how well our board and our community stood behind our schools, and your leadership was a huge part of that, so thanks, Chad.
Thank you, and I would like to say that since my tenure on the board over the last 6 years, the last 2 years, in my opinion, we've been more unified than any other board that I've been on, so I very much appreciate that from all of the board members. So, there are a lot of smart people out there, and we witnessed that when we interviewed these 5 candidates, and there's a lot of talent in our district, and we will just continue to, have those a lot smarter people than me serve here. So, go ahead, Mr. Jenkins.
Just thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You've been a wonderful chairman and a great board member, and I'm glad to call you my dear friend.
Thank you. Okay. Any other agenda items for upcoming meetings? I would like to maybe have a report on what we decided to do with, we talked about our grounds, John. Yep. What we decided to do, what steps have been taken to improve that, and then also, based upon recommendations from prior committees, we've sold excess property, and what are we doing with those funds? Because we've had a couple projects we wanted to move forward on, and I'd like a report on that.
Sounds good.
Other.
Our NSBA report that was very good.
Okay, yeah, Paul did want to make that.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
Thanks.
Okay. All right, call for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Randy Smith, seconded by Paul Jenkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think Carissa is an aye on that.
Past midnight. She's past midnight.
It's past midnight in Washington. Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody.